Sorry, everybody. Oh my fucking god. I do not know why that happened. Genuinely. I'm like, I cannot figure out why that happened. Thank you for bearing with me. Yes, I did say this is stupid to all the lip readers out there. Yeah, I don't know why that happened. Sorry. It does this sometimes. I don't really understand why. It's the worst piece of equipment that I own, but it was a gift, so I'm not going to complain too much. Yeah, a dance stream. Anyway, hi. Shout out to Jazz Dog, whose music we were listening to. Normally, we just listen to the whatever's available in the YouTube creator library, but I was like, you know what? Jazz Dog is okay with people playing his music on stream. I think that Jazz Dog uses he, him pronouns. I do not know, but I was like, yeah, let's listen to some Jazz Dog. So we might do that from now on. Shout out. Yes, sorry that the audio was bad at first. Now we're back and everybody can hear me. Hit the like button. I would appreciate it if you hit the like button, because then we can get some people in here, get more folks in here. Hi to the YouTube chat. Jojo Tater, Coin Silver, ACAB includes Tone Police, Phoebe G, Dally Greaser, Mabs Alicorn. Y'all, I enjoy you in the YouTube chat, but just so you know, this is my website where we have custom emojis and stuff. So, you know, feel free to hop on over. So the website chat is looking real slow today. I think that was Ember. Oh, no. God damn it. It does this. It does fucking... Okay, it also does this thing on my website chat where sometimes it's like stuck way above where you all actually are. Anyway, hi. Gayfesh, Byron, Psycho, Plebeian, Mersh, hello. Yeah, they are trying to silence me. Tech Gremlin followed me to Oregon. It's true. It's true. But yeah, anyway. Appreciate everybody hanging out today. Yeah, what's up, Baphomet? Right. So anyway, yeah, shout out to Jazz Dog. We've got a show today. I have a tech mogwai and I don't get it wet. True. That's typically what you want to do, is not get it wet. Anyway, gosh. So it's been a heck of a week, you know? YS Project, salute, indeed. I have a tech mogwai and I don't feed it after midnight, and since it always is after midnight, I just don't feed it. Also, it died. True. Couldn't cancel the order. Yeah, I'm sorry. So just so everybody knows, if you ever place an order on my merch store, and it does say this on every product page, but like, I just want to bring it back to attention. Like, you have to make sure you get the right size and the right item. Like, make sure that the order is correct, because everything on my store is made to order. Like, as you order it, it is then made and then shipped out. So you have to make sure you got the right thing, because the host site does not do returns, refunds, or like, you also cannot cancel the order once they actually start producing it. If you catch it same day, you place an order and you're like, oops, that was the wrong size, you can delete it. But yeah, unfortunately, that's how it works with the ready-made items. Oh no, kitty. Audio problems on the receiving end as well. What's up, Mosh? Ooh, Martian Envy says that they're going to go on a walk since it's nice out. Ugh. I really am trying to figure out how to get the routine of, like, going for a walk on a regular basis, you know? Like, I live in a pretty decent area. Like, you know, where I used to live, it was just not a walkable neighborhood at all. Just very not friendly to pedestrians and foot traffic. But it's a little bit better here. So I'm trying to get in that, like, how can I get this into, like, a routine? Especially since also, like, my symptoms of my illnesses have been off the charts recently and everything. Like, bleh. So I have news to cover today. I am not as organized this morning as I was last time. Like, we're doing this weekly thing now. Sunday stream is the serious stream. Which doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be zero goofing off. but, this is the day where we record the video for last week's news. And there's a fucking lot of news. There's so much news. So that's going to be fun. Do you have a park? Oh, there's lots of parks. Like, there's so much public land in Oregon. It's crazy. Yeah, but so we've got like a lot to talk about. And I think there's so much news to talk about today that I will probably have like maybe 3 things that I go in depth on. But then I might do like a little rapid fire segment in the middle where I'm like, here's a few honorable mentions. Like, I am not going to go into any detail on this, but like, here's the headline and here's like 1 or 2 sentences about why it's important. Trying to figure it out. I've been a little checked out of the onslaught this week as I needed a break, so I'm here and ready to learn today. Yeah, I did a bad job this week of making sure to stay off all week, But, it's a process of trying to like minimize toxic social media and spend time offline. But like a lot of the time that I spend offline is like I have fucking disability stuff happening, and I'm like, I am struggling to just kind of function on the daily, which sucks. But yeah, posted a few things in Streamrex about an hour ago about France making hydrogen and California allowing the Salton Sea to be mined for lithium. I did see those. I don't know if that fits into the show. Like, okay, I just want to give you an impression overall. By the way, 37 people in here, only 19 likes. It's free, it's easy, it's quick. Do it real fast, okay? If you love me, you'll do it. I'm kidding. That's manipulative. So here's all the stories that I have just pulled up right now. Trump admin threatens to pull California school funding unless they forcibly out trans students. 1. 2, the Wisconsin appeals court will not stop Elon Musk's $1 million payments to voters, even though it is illegal in that state. 3, the Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plans and all of the fallout from that. I don't even know if I'm going to get into detail on that today because Jesus fucking H Christ. Everybody's heard about it already. Texans might have to show photo ID to buy a dildo online. Number 4. Executive order banning vote by mail and increasing restrictions that will make it difficult for any woman who has gotten married or anyone who's changed their last name when they got married, and any trans person who has changed their name might make it impossible for them to vote. Number 5. Number 6, cis woman who worked at Walmart fired because a customer accused her of being trans in the bathroom. 6. 7, disability rights. Trump taking away protections for disabled people and increasing attacks on disabled people. Those are my 7 bad stories that I have currently up on my thing right now. And I'm like, I have not figured out before getting on the stream this morning which one of those we're actually going to go in depth on and which ones just have to be honorable mentions. This is every week. I have to like pare things down and like slim it down and like formulate a rhythm for the show and everything. And it's very difficult. So I got to figure that out. There's also a couple good news stories. We've got this thing, I think Kitty may have shared this last week about the Great Green Wall. I mean, this is like something happening in Africa. 22 African countries revitalizing thousands of communities around the continent. Are we not doing the miscarriage arrest? What? Where? Give me a state and I will try to look it up, because holy God, like this is what I'm saying. Like there's so much news. It is very difficult to pare it down and decide like what's the most important thing. What are people coming to me for? How can I get other important information to the people who are coming to me? It's like, if you care about trans rights, I would also like to talk about disability rights, because that affects trans people. And also like, I don't know how, it's so interesting. I really should do like a focus group sometime and figure out what is the proportion of people who watch this show. Are you mostly trans? And like, obviously the live stream audience is different to the video audience. And like, I am very weird, I'm realizing, as a trans streamer. This show, the live show, does not perform very well compared to other people based on subscriber count. Like, Riverboat Jack has like 11,000 subscribers, but she gets like easily 100 or 200 people in her stream chat, like at the beginning of the stream. Like, she's just starting up and there were 100 people in there when I was there last night or the night before, whenever I dropped into her stream. Riverboat Jack, she's cool. But like, this is also true of Demon Mama, where Demon Mama had fewer subscribers than me, but she was getting like, 200 and 300 viewers just kind of on the regular, right? I don't know how well those people's videos perform because I haven't like looked into it, but I have like more subscribers and I get more views on my published videos than I do on my live streams, and it's just like really interesting to look at that. Have you seen that trans kids deserve better have been confronting West Streeting? I haven't really been paying attention to any news in the UK, if I'm being completely honest. I am so focused on like the destruction of my country right now. You've had this channel for a long time too. A lot of those subs are bound to be inactive. True. Yeah. And like, I have changed too. Like, when I got a lot of those subscribers, like, honestly, getting shouted out by ContraPoints was less of a boon than you would think, but it was my videos responding to ContraPoints that made like a big chunk of that as well. Like, people definitely subscribed to my channel when I was at my most annoying SJW, probably. Or like, I was maybe coming at the tail end of being the most annoying SJW of my version of that. I was definitely not as annoying as some of the other ones have been. But yeah, so there's probably plenty of people who were subscribed who just don't like the content anymore, which is cool. Upside of the videos doing better is it's easier to take time down. I fucking would hope so. I did not want to work today, if I'm being completely honest. It's fine. That feeling will roll over a couple more times, and then I will skip a stream in a couple weeks. It's like, and unfortunately, I'm probably gonna skip a Wednesday stream because if I skip the Sunday stream, then there's no video that week, But yeah, Mosh, if you know when or like where does that miscarriage arrest from so that I can narrow it down and make sure I get the most recent story. The other positive news story that I had planned was about Kat Abugazela, who has like, this article that I have pulled up is that Kat Abugazela kicks off her campaign saying, we don't need to be less woke and we don't need to abandon trans people. So that would be a good story for this week. Like, oh, look at this. Someone running as a Democrat who's not a huge piece of shit. Wouldn't that be fine? Wouldn't that be grand? I feel like maybe there should be one more positive story. Planning to skip Easter. Is today Easter? When is Easter? I don't care about Easter, to be completely honest. I forget about shit like that. And then it's happening and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess it's Easter. I found you from ContraPoints when that happened. Nice. Hey, shout out to the people who have been around for a long time. I don't even have a strong opinion on Kat Abu other than she makes all the worst people angry. Right. Yeah. I also don't feel like passionate about supporting her campaign, but I do really appreciate, like, first of all, it was hilarious the way that she launched her campaign. Very funny. Everybody gets upset, And then she starts saying things like, oh, or I'm going to go on trans podcast to talk about which Pokemon are fuckable. And then she actually did, I think. And then her just like straight up saying that she's like, oh, we need to not abandon trans people. I'm like, okay, it's a good story to cover because it is kind of in contrast to all of the complaining we've been doing about the Democratic establishment. And based on how many donations she's gotten, that is a way for us to point to like, hey, Democrats should realize that supporting trans people is a good way to win an election. To be clear, the podcast was not about fuckable Pokemon. Did it just come up during the conversation? Like, how do you make an entire podcast about Pokemon smashability? Miscarriage story from Georgia. The podcast Discord forced some of its members to make a tier list because they wouldn't stop talking about fuckable Pokemon. Oh, is that a means of trying to like get them to stop talking about it? So like, oh, okay, guys, just make a tier list and put this thing to bed so that you stop talking about it in the chat. Okay, she went on this podcast, and the podcast community also had this separate thing going on. Got it. Mabs, welcome to the website chat. Thank you. 45 viewers, 29 likes. We could get some more likes in here. That would be appropriate. I'm going to do some complaining about discourse before we get into the news today. So we have some time. I have some things to complain about. I'll figure out, I'll help, you guys can help me organize this fucking show and like what things do we actually need to go into detail about. Okay, that's a good news. Public opinion is shifting on trans people. That's a good news. Or like public opinion is showing that like new poll shows massive opposition to the active US government censorship of trans people. That's a good story. Hello, YS Project. Welcome to the website. Thanks, y'all, for coming over to the website. The reason why the website is cool is because, number one, obviously, we've got the custom chat with the custom emojis. You can set your pronouns in your profile page so that when people hover over your name, they can see your pronouns, which they do not have that on YouTube. And if you support me financially directly through the website, YouTube doesn't take 40% of your money. You only have the PayPal fees. And I get to keep all the rest of it. And like then I get to pay for hosting and bills and all that kind of thing. But yeah. And then there's custom emojis that you get access to when you pay for a subscription on the website. So hey, that's always fun. We don't get silly enough in this chat. I realized that because I'm a very serious person, I have cultivated a pretty like serious community in some ways. Y'all very rarely go on tirades of just posting emojis or, like when I walk away, I don't come back and see like you've gotten into a bunch of shenanigans in the chat, which is fine. It's just interesting to, reflect on. Kat Abu had done a sexy Charizard cosplay in college, so she tweeted that photo. Hilarious. I love that. That's grand. I need to get over T-Rex as the best dinosaur. Time to branch out. Yeah, wowies. Exactly. There have been times where there have been wowies in the chat while I'm gone, but it definitely hasn't kicked off in the way that it is in Vash's chat. And I also, don't... It's so interesting wondering about, how much crossover you have with other creators. I expected to have a lot of crossover with Demon Mama when I first started, right? So, actually, initially, when I first started streaming, I set my schedule to be I'm going to stream on the days that Demon Mama doesn't usually stream on because I don't want us to have a competing thing where, people are trying to choose where to be. I just figured, we're both very similar creators, and I think that we might have a, similar audience. Jezebel. Okay. No, you can post links on the website. Thank you, Mosh. It does not let you post them on the YouTube page, though, and I do not have control over that. If you spam dicks and pussy, it might start to get a little played out. Sure, but, do it every once in a while. Yeah, I know. Nuvenal up here making the chat super highbrow. Okay, so, okay. Yes, it is Georgia. Georgia miscarriage case. But this is what I mean, too, is I do think that this story is important, but how do I fit this into the show? How much time do I give each of these things? It's obviously, I want to talk about things that are important to me and directly affect me. Oh, hey, I'm affected by stuff that impacts abortion rights, and I'm impacted by stuff about disability and trans stuff, and people come here for the trans stuff, but we have to talk about the other things too. Just realized I've been watching a minute behind. Happens to the best of us. I'm very unserious. I come here for the discipline. Okay, fair enough. Shout out to Jammy Dodger for sure. I do not know Queer Kiwi or One Topic, but I hope that those are good channels that you enjoy. Ba-da-bum, ba-bum, ba-da-ba-ba-ba-bum. What's up, Fen? Hello. I have chicken broth. Did you know that this is a thing that you can do? You can just put chicken broth in a cup and just drink it. It's a great way to start the day, TBH. In a Doctor Who mug. Doctor Who. Okay, so I need to complain. I need to complain about something. Hit the like button if you're ready to hear me complain. Or hit the like button before you leave because I'm about to complain. I think that one of these things I might turn into a little mini video to put out on its own because I do feel like it's worth talking about. So maybe I'll save that for a minute. I want to first alienate a bunch of people by talking about anti-theism. So prepare to be alienated, I guess. I don't know. This is the one I feel that as an atheist, people are still very hostile to atheism, even within the trans community, which is interesting. It's like, okay, obviously we know that within like the broader umbrella trans community, there's like racism, right? We know this. Like black trans people have been talking about it forever. They're like, why am I getting held to a higher standard and all this, blah, blah, blah. So like, I'm not saying that the trans community is immune to being biased toward groups of people because like any group that's big enough will end up having overlaps and weird like areas where certain things don't mesh together and like conflicting access needs. Yes, we're talking about Zinnia Jones. I don't know that I would describe it as a burnout, but basically like this trans woman, Zinnia Jones, who's been around for forever, she recently, so she has walked back this position, to be clear. She's walked it back. She's acknowledged that it doesn't make sense, that she popped off about something, and that she's going to rethink her approach to this particular issue. So I just want to be clear. She has evolved on this and has been receptive to criticism, which I think is important. You know, like, because maybe she did make a misstep initially, but that doesn't mean that, like, she's now a bad person or anything, right? So the initial comments, I agree, were kind of spurious because she starts popping off about, like, basically, she's an anti-theist, which I am also, which is a person who believes that religion is kind of a bad thing no matter what. Like organized religion where you earnestly believe in stuff that's not real, you know? If you have like a cultural practice, like I don't think that for me that falls under the purview of like things to be criticized. But she tied that anti-theist belief around all religions and then mentioned Judaism and also brought it up in the context of like, because Judaism is being used in some ways as a justification for Zionism and the existence of Israel, therefore people should stop believing in Judaism. Which, like, again, I'm not like gonna say that that was all correct. She herself has walked a lot of that back, but I'm just saying that was the initial kind of what kicked off this conversation. But it has brought forward, I think, like, first of all, she became like the trans woman of the week that everybody's like bashing and calling her stupid and making fun of her and everything, which I don't think is appropriate. She was trying to make a structural argument, which is fitting in with her belief system that being religious is bad. And things just kind of like blew out of control and everybody got super pissed off. And obviously, like, this has me thinking about my anti-theism and the fact that, like, this is something that it's like the one thing that I can't bring with me when I'm doing trans or queer activism, right? Like, I feel like I can't talk about my religious beliefs or my lack of religious beliefs without, like, people taking it really personally. In the same way that, like, I used to criticize Christians who are not trans, like, just generally. And, like, I've noticed that people tie themselves to those beliefs in a way that it's not possible to criticize what they think without feeling like you're criticizing them personally. And obviously that translates into a trans environment or queer environment where people feel like you're attacking them personally by saying you don't think that they should believe things. What's up, Drea? And I think that it is also pretty disingenuous for... I think it's really disingenuous if somebody says, like, I think people should stop believing in Judaism, which is what she said. You know, like, let's disconnect it from the Zionism thing and try to look at it just one piece at a time. Like, she said that she thinks that people should willingly not believe in it. And she acknowledged openly that if there were someone who was trying to actually stop them from believing it, yes, that would be a form of cultural genocide, right? So you can say people shouldn't believe this without saying, and we should force them to stop believing it, right? Like, most of us want people to stop being transphobic, but we are not advocating for re-education camps. There are some people who will joke about that or who maybe are serious about that, but, like, that doesn't represent the majority. And that also doesn't mean that everybody who is saying that you shouldn't be transphobic is saying that you should be subject to psychological conditioning to fix you, right? So the fact that people called Zinnia genocidal, like, when we're dealing with actual fascists, just, like, I don't know what to do with that reaction. I think really what it is people are very sensitive right now, and not in a way that I think that that's, like, bad necessarily, or, like, I understand it. I understand and like, validate that people are very sensitive right now. I am also sensitive in a certain way, you know? But, like, people feel powerless to attack Elon Musk and Trump and everything, and then they see a trans woman saying something that they feel could be interpreted as supporting the most heinous version of beliefs around Judaism. And to call her a genocide monger and, like, in the midst of, like, all of this shit attacking pro-Palestinian people and all that, like, it really is interesting that I'm like, oh, it's not really even, like, safe for me to talk about my beliefs as a trans person because this, or as an anti-theist trans person, because if I apply my standard of, like, thinking that religious beliefs are bad equally to everyone, including people who believe in Judaism, like, then I'm going to have my account labeled violent anti-Semitism, which is what has happened to Zinnia. Yeah, so it's just been kind of interesting that, you know, and, like, and I think that people get really fucking stupid about this subject too. Like, if you go and say, like, atheism is a religion, I think that you're a liar. Like, I think that you are lying on purpose or that you're a moron, and I'm not sure what to do with that, really. Like, I don't respect you at all if you say that atheism is a religion. I also have very little respect for people who say you're a militant atheist. It's kind of like when people used to call feminists feminazis. That's how it feels to me when people say, oh, you're a militant atheist. An atheist socialist hero of mine likes to call himself Jew-ish, meaning he doesn't believe in God but can't stop being a Jew. Okay, so this is where I feel like, so speaking to the whole, like, when you criticize something that people believe, they feel like you're criticizing them as a human person, right? And then the fuzziness of, like, Jewish people existing as a racial minority and a cultural group, and also Judaism as a religion, and the fact that it is so deeply entwined as like the people group is the same as that, except for rare exceptions. Obviously, there are tons of Jewish people. I know some Jewish people racially, culturally. Like, I know somebody who is of Ashkenazi descent and had to have a double mastectomy because they had breast cancer at age 26. Like, I know people who are like racially Jewish and also atheist, and they participate in some of the ritual of their culture in the same way that like Polish people make pierogi and and like in the same way that like Mexicans have big get-togethers where they have like all this delicious food and everything. Like there's like these cultural practices and certain like rituals that can exist in a secular sense about like community togetherness, right? So you can be Jewish physically, racially, culturally, and not like religious as a Jew. But there is this massive conflation between those things. And like, then you look at like the definition of genocide and the fact that it includes religions and like your beliefs. And then like the fact that like your religious beliefs are subject to all these protections and stuff. Like, I don't know that it was a good move to make like beliefs into a protected class like that. And like you can see how this can get stretched in the way that like TERFs are trying to get their beliefs about trans people into a protected class in the same way that religion is a protected class. I think that if we acknowledged people groups, that would still be good, right? And like maybe they're tied together by cultural practices. But like, I don't know that it makes a lot of sense to like cluster people together in that way. And I think that that reinforces this thing where people are unable to accept criticism of their beliefs. And like, I want to be clear too, I don't think that anybody should be forced to not believe anything. I'm not saying that we need to pass laws that make it like illegal for you to pray in school over your own lunch. Like obviously that would be, just overtly anti-freedom. I don't know that it would be bigoted exactly. I don't know how I feel about that. But yeah, I don't know. It's like weird. It's very difficult to discuss this because I'm obviously like, I don't want to piss people off, but also I feel like it's not possible to talk about this, and I'm like, I should be able to talk about it on my own show, and even still I'm like, let me be really, really careful about what I say, because I'm gonna piss a bunch of people off and then like alienate people who would listen to me about other subjects. Do you watch any witchy channels? Not really. Like I have before when I'm like, hey, I want to know, how do pagans celebrate this holiday? Like, I'm curious about that. Okay, Kitty's dropped a couple paragraphs. I'm going to read them out loud. My belief about belief is predicated on the question, what is the purpose of belief? From what I can figure, it is the attempt to answer a question that is impossible to answer, which is what happens after we die. It is a universal fear of not knowing. Thank you for the donation. I will read that in a second. We as humans have a distinct need to answer questions. When the question is unable to be answered, we fall on faith in order to feel comfort. By degrees, people who do not believe in organized religions are the kind of people that are comfortable coming up with their own belief and owning that, or simply not knowing and being okay with that. So I don't begrudge people their lantern in the dark. I just get annoyed when everyone acts like they are the one that is right, forget needing to be right, and just take your comfort where you can get it. But that's like, that is part of the problem that I have though. Like when I am saying that I think religion is harmful, I mean it like in a individual sense as well. It's not just a cultural sense. Like, obviously we should have a strong separation of church and state. I really don't like it when politicians say that belief in God is the reason why they're doing what they're doing. Like, in fact, I think you should lose your job if you say that, because you're not doing your job. If you are passing laws based on your religious beliefs, like, you are breaking the law as far as I'm concerned. You're breaking the social contract as well, as far as I'm concerned. But that would be an extremely unpopular opinion. But like, I do think that politicians should not be allowed to say stuff like that. But I also think that it harms people on the individual level because, like, I came out as an atheist when I was a teenager, a pretty young teenager, like maybe like 11 or 12. Like barely a teenager at that point, really preteens. And I do not know why this happened. Like, why was I in a restaurant with my aunt and my uncle, and my aunt starts fucking sobbing to me about my beliefs, my atheist beliefs. This is the subject of the conversation. Why did she start sobbing to me, going, I just have to believe I'll see my dad again? I think that's a harm to you. Like, I think that you are hurting yourself by being like, I'm holding out hope that I'm going to see this person again. Like, that's not closure. I do think that that is a harm to the individual. If you're getting only good things out of it, that's great. But I also think that anything good you're getting from religion, you could get from a secular source too. So, like, I've been an atheist for longer than I've been anything else that I am. I knew that I was an atheist before I knew I was trans, before I knew I was bi. Like, before I knew I was disabled, you know, like before I had any access needs. Back when I was still like a brilliant young kid who had a lot of interests, you know? And it is the thing that I am still most maligned for. Like, even in the trans community. Like, being atheist and anti-theist, like, even within the trans community, like, that is a way in which I am still somewhat marginalized, and I have to keep my opinions to myself, or people will freak out and will not join coalition with me. I'm willing to do coalition with religious people. I'm sitting here thinking, oh, I would really like to, volunteer for homeless services in my area, and, like, I will have to work with a church in order to do that. It's kind of looking like I will have to work with a church. I will do that. But it feels like people do not want to meet in the middle with me as an anti-theist. Like, because people say all these things like, you can't force people to stop. And I'm like, did I fucking say I wanted to force anybody to stop? Or are you just making shit up to justify how upset you are with me? Like, yes, that would be a bad thing if I was suggesting that we should start, like, penalizing people for being religious privately. That would be an overstep. That would be anti-freedom. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I think people should acknowledge areas in their lives where they are simply not interested in using critical thinking. Like, why are there parts of your life where, like, your emotional comfort is more important than what's real? Because, like, it's normalized the way that religious belief works, where it's like, well, you should just let people believe what they want to believe. And, like, do you apply that to anything else? Do we respect the beliefs of transphobic people? Do we respect the deeply held beliefs of racist people? Like, what if it's Mormons who religiously believe that Black people are tainted souls and inferior, right? Like, there is obviously a line somewhere, and it's different for every person, right? Like, where it's like, I'm willing to accept your stupid bullshit beliefs up to a certain point, and my threshold is just much lower. I don't understand why people have a problem with atheists. Why do they care about what you do or don't believe? Well, because me saying, like, I guess it's not just me being an atheist, right? Like, of course, like, there's degrees of belief within atheism. You know, there's, like, people who are soft atheists, who are more agnostic, who are like, I don't really know and I don't care. And then there's, like, all the way up to, like, overtly anti-theist. Like, I think religion is bad and no one should do it. And, like, obviously the definition of religion should be very clearly defined if you're having that level of conversation. Because, like, I'm a pagan. I do all this goofy fucking pagan shit. Should people not do that? Like, well, I believe that I'm not doing it in a way that is compromising my reason. It is not an area of my life where I refuse to use critical thinking skills. So I don't personally find that to be, like, harmful. Other people are going to believe that my little ritual practices are Satan, and, like, are toxic to my soul and are going to cause like societal collapse and things, you know? Uh, how does everyone feel about Jehovah's Witnesses? My family sent me to them and I didn't get good impressions. Ah. One time, Jehovah's Witnesses came to our house, and my mom thought it would be funny to let me answer the door because I had just recently come out as an atheist. Like that. I don't really remember that conversation, but it didn't last very long. Yeah. And like, I do draw a distinction, like, you know, you can have like spiritual beliefs and also think that the organized religion thing is bad, you know? I think there's a difference between opposing organized religion and opposing faith itself. Yeah, there is a difference between those two things. Totally. They're different criticisms. I oppose organized religion because of the impact that it has on society, and I oppose faith because of what it does to people internally. Like, you know, it's different for every person, but I have witnessed it be toxic. That's all I'm saying. So we don't have to stay on this subject if people are not interested, but I just found it really interesting to see all these people having this very big reaction. And, you know, that as an anti-theist, if you're applying your beliefs equally, then there are going to be people who think that you're trying to do cultural genocide. Because also, like, when we're criticizing religion and people bring up fucking Turtle Island and American Indian beliefs or like Native American beliefs, I'm like, I don't give a shit about that for the most part. They don't have structural power. For the most part, that's a cultural thing anyway, as far as I can tell. Like, I don't think that most people who are talking about their Native American beliefs, like, genuinely believe that the earth exists on the back of a turtle. I think that would be anti-science and anti-reality. But I think it's more of a symbolism thing. So I'm like, yeah, of course I don't give a shit about that. They don't have, first of all, I don't think that they're that sincere in their beliefs in the first place. But second of all, they don't have any structural power over society. So obviously I'm not saying we should culturally genocide the fucking Native Americans. And that, like, I'm also not saying we should culturally genocide Jews by saying that, like, I think that Judaism might include some of the believing in things that aren't real that many other religions do. And that if there are a bunch of secular practices that don't have anything to do with belief in things that are not real, then I don't care about those practices. Is that religion? Like, do you call that religion if people have a series of like non-spiritual, like non-delusional practices? I don't see that as being a religion, but then maybe someone else defines religion that way. I don't know. My cat is being super cute right now, by the way. I don't want to pick him up because I accidentally gave him an asthma attack earlier, but he's being very cute and we love him. Oh, that's an interesting thought. Collective consciousness is more likely than not. Whatever big G is, we probably wouldn't understand it. That's interesting. Collective consciousness is not something that I have really explored, but it is an interesting idea. Yeah, listen, you can't prove there isn't a turtle. Sure. Ah, that's an interesting proposition. Les Watts in the YouTube chat, or Lewat, says, my strong belief is that we have a society that satisfies everyone's material needs. The thirst for religion would fade. So I do think that people search for meaning, and that people will continue searching for meaning, even if their material needs are satisfied. But I think that if we had, in addition to a society that satisfies everyone's material needs, if we had a society that satisfies everyone's need for community, for purpose, for meaningful philosophical frameworks, then I think that we would not need religion as much. You know, like if your purpose is dedicated to your community, if you have the means and the time to create art, you know, like if you have a strong humanist belief system, I think that those things altogether would eliminate the need for religion. Because, like, what are you getting from it that you couldn't get from somewhere else? I thought the official position of this stream was Christ is King. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. There are 70 people in here right now. Thank you so much for coming in here to hang out. Oh my god, dude, somebody donated earlier and it went away again. I was gonna respond to it and I'm just now realizing that it just went away again. Why do you do that? Normally what happens is that, like, it pops up initially and then it goes into another menu. Well, who donated earlier? God damn it. I'm so fucking sorry that I forgot. Thank you, Christians Against Dinosaurs, for the €2. I love the Elon's Tears mug. Super awesome. Cool. If you want Elon's Tears mug, go to the store, link in the description. It will be gone in the next couple of days. I'm so sorry. Who donated earlier and what did you say? So that I can respond to your comment. I did not mean to blow past it. I'm so sorry. It was a $10 donation, right? So that gives us like $12 total for today. Thank you. I think it was Ateen, but I don't know. Okay, there we go. I'm so sorry. Okay, did you have a comment you wanted me to read? I'm so sorry. Churches do try to wedge themselves as cornerstones of community. Yes, they do. I mean, my partner and I drove past a funeral this past week, and he was like, "What is going on here?" And I was like, "Oh, that's a church." And then I saw the sign that said, "Oh, it's someone's celebration of life ceremony." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, it's a funeral." And we had this moment briefly where we were like, "Oh, I guess that's okay." And then we were like, "Actually, that is not good." Like, that churches prey on people in their most vulnerable time. You know? Oh, yeah. Thank you, Les Watts, Scottish Z. Okay, cool, nice. Thank you for the £5. Bringing us up to like $17 for today's stream. Hell yeah. There we go. Cool, cool. Yeah, I guess I have to read donations like the moment they happen. I donated, I said, we can't quantify our unconsciousness. Anyone who thinks they know anything about what a god might be is naive or a liar. That includes a certainty of nothing. Yeah, I do think that part of the issue that I initially had with, like, whether I believed in God was, like, the lack of definition. Or, like, the moment that I went from being agnostic to Gnostic, meaning when I went from uncertainty to certainty about whether God exists was when I was reading an article about how there isn't a consistent definition of God. When people are trying to explain what God is, you'll have some people who say, like, he's a humanoid anthropomorphic figure that is, like, guiding the universe. Or you would have people who would say, like, God is that feeling of love that everybody has. Or some people would say, like, God holds the fabric of the universe together like he's the force. Like, God is gravity. Like, gravity is God in the universe, for example. So you just get all these different definitions. And it's like, if we can't even get over the first hurdle of having a clear definition of what this thing is, then I do not need to concern myself with the question of whether it exists. Mersh, I love that. Some Mormons drove up beside me at the park yesterday. They saw me sitting in a pickup truck smoking a pipe and drove away after I waved to them. That's funny. Fesh says, I've had so much pushback for saying that it's actually actively evil and racist to believe that Native Americans evolved separately from other humans, and it's a belief I have seen a few people espouse from a Native perspective. You have to be careful about how you criticize it, but I will always, always, always say that it is evil and racist to believe a group of humans are a different species. Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. Uh, yeah, and it's like also not even true. Like I think that we have like genetic evidence of the um, crossing over the land bridge in the Bering Strait. Yeah, Mormonism is whack. Lemony Limelight. I love your username. My parents are in their 70s, so this stuff is on my mind more, but like I'm gonna have to fight to make sure their funerals aren't just turned into events to evangelize. It would be insanely inappropriate given that almost all their children are not Christian and the service should be for them first and foremost. Oh, yeah. Oh man. Years back when my partner's grandma passed, the service was given by a person of faith and they talked about faith and belief in an afterlife and stuff. And my partner, who is also a very strong atheist, was very upset by that because he knew that his grandmother was not a believer. She thought all that stuff was silly nonsense. Um, and so he was really upset by that. Um, but basically, it was basically just a question of like, this is for more people than just our close family. Like if the celebration had been for if it had been a smaller celebration, like a smaller ceremony, it's possible that we may have not had that religious element, but it really like disrupted my partner's grieving process to feel that his grandmother's memory was being disrespected like that. So that is so tough having to deal with like the end of life acknowledgement and or like the party or the funeral or whatever it is that people like to call it. It's difficult. You cannot use science to prove a being who by definition must exist outside the universe. No idea why so many people seem to insist on proving anything one way or the other. I mean, because it's a huge claim. Like when I as an atheist say I want you to prove your claims, it's because like there are huge implications. Like if there is a being that exists outside the universe, then okay, now we have a huge scientific question of what it means to be outside the universe. That begs a huge question about like you're stating something massive about reality at that point. And like the additional things of like, and this person controls things on earth, and this person, this being, this god, this entity, like has the power to stop children from starving but doesn't. Or like this being just kicked the universe into existence in the first place and now is completely hands off and is just watching everything happen. Like, okay, what is the point of believing in that? Like, there are so many things that it's like, if you're making a God claim, that is a huge claim. And it isn't just your personal belief. It isn't. Like, it has implications for everyone. And so you should have to prove it if you expect other people to agree with you. And like I know not all Christians are trying to get people to agree with them, or not even all religious people are trying to get people to agree with them. But like, again, I still think it's a bad thing for an individual's well-being to believe things that are false because they just want to. And you can disagree with that. That's fine. I'm not saying you have to agree with me either. Oh, Ember points out or asks, does God exist outside the universe definitionally? Because first of all, no holy book actually says that. It's a post hoc argument. And B, it entails incoherency. Yeah. Oh, that sucks, Shakespeare. The priest at my grandmother's funeral more or less reused great portions of the eulogy given for my grandpa a decade before. In my grandmother's funeral eulogy, I learned more about my grandpa than my grandma. Ugh, terrible. Yeah, literally, Jojo Tater. That's what it means for things to exist. It has to be observable. If it's not observable, then it doesn't exist. What sucks is my brother and sister are still active Mormons, so the services will be extremely religious whenever that happens. It will be the first time much of my family will probably see me in person since I transitioned, and it will be a very, very strange. It will be strange speaking at all and trying not to call out the church for harming my family and separating me from them for years. Yeah, you end up in this situation where you're trying to decide whether to even go to the funeral, like you being not allowed to mourn because you don't believe anymore. You know, like your mourning is for an atheist, mourning is constantly being challenged and interrupted by religious people. You know, if you mention that like someone you know died, then they're like no matter what, pretty much like you're gonna get people who are like, oh well, oh well they're with Jesus now, minimizing your pain, saying it's fine, it doesn't matter. Or like people who are saying I'll pray for you, which you as an atheist know is fucking pointless. Like on some level you have to be like, I appreciate that you're gonna think good thoughts about me, but like if you want to help me, then fucking bring me a casserole or something. Like actually do something instead of just like I would take less offense to somebody saying like, "Oh, you're in my thoughts. I'm so sorry." Like rather than saying, "I'll pray for you." Like I understand that it's coming from the same place, but that doesn't mean that it feels any less bad in the moment. Actually, I know someone who wrote an entire book on atheist grieving. Transness doesn't have to be observable to exist, but it is observable. What the fuck does that mean? Transness exists and therefore is observable, and it's observable and therefore it exists. That's very silly, Sophie. Being disinvited from your cousin's wedding because the uncle didn't like that you weren't being religiously observant at a other cousin's funeral. God, like being cut off from your family members and important events and like not being allowed to see your nephews and stuff because like nephews and nieces because of this shit. Like that's crazy. I think our inability to observe something is not a basis to say with confidence that it does not exist. Not that long ago, we couldn't observe the air we breathe, but it exists. Our ability to observe new things is always growing. That's true, but I think that's also a God of the gaps argument. Like, I think that that's basically saying, like, everything that we can't explain could be God at any given time. Like, we shouldn't be holding out hope that there's going to be some proof of this thing. Like, it would be so much easier to just say, okay, that probably isn't real. But okay, so and also that's the opposite. Like saying our inability to observe something is not a basis to say with confidence that it does not exist. That's the opposite of how the burden of proof works. You have to like have proof that something exists in order to say that it exists. It does not work logically to say like, well, you can't prove it doesn't exist, therefore it might. That like, I don't know, man. Lux has become Matt. Listen, I think Matt Dillahunty is kind of an asshole, and I like him, and I agree with him on a lot of things. And I would definitely have a poker night with him, except that I can't play poker. Yes, and you can form testable hypotheses out of things you can't see. Yeah? Like the whole invisible dragon thing. Lux the Oort Cloud denier. Yeah, so we do the invisible dragon test. Okay, that you say you have a dragon in your house. And I say, okay, why don't you show it to me? And you say, okay, well, it's an invisible dragon. And I say, okay, well, I can probably hear it moving around and breathing, right? And you say, it's an inaudible dragon. And I say, okay, well, if it exists physically in space, then maybe I can throw some flour into the air and it'll land on it and I can see it that way. And they say, oh, it's an impermeable, or it's a fully permeable dragon. You see what I mean? It's like okay, so like what basis by which do you have to say that there's a dragon in your garage if it is not possible to interact with it in any meaningful way? Like, is it giving off radiant heat? Can I feel the air around the dragon? Like, oh, it's a cold-blooded dragon. It doesn't produce heat. Like, this is what it's like to be an atheist. Long story short. I love that it's dragon instead of a unicorn or teapot. Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember where that rhetorical device came from. What's up, Martian MB? Welcome back from your walk. Finally got on the website. Welcome to the website, babes. Yeah, being estranged from family because they are evangelical Christian nationalists. Matt strikes me as someone who has heard it all before and for some reason perseveres against his own lack of patience to host a show where he hears it all again. Me too. You're so right. Oh man, that's so funny. That's so right. I'm going to, is it okay, Byron, if I just copy that and put it in the chat in like the line Discord for Matt to see? Because I think that's so funny. I think that's hilarious. Most quantum particles were first postulated because the ones we couldn't see didn't respond, or the ones we could see didn't respond the way we thought they should. Now we have, quote, observed dozens of smaller and weirder particles and understand why things move around at both the macro and micro level in a pretty big way. Yeah. And it's too, like, there have been, it's like, oh, we've discovered black holes, not because they're directly observable, but because of the impact that their gravity has on other objects in their celestial neighborhood. I think that you're reaching into solipsism at that point, Sophie. Saying, I don't think existence has anything to do with observation. That would be embodiment or materialism or performance. But existence is a physical thing. Like, to say things exist because we think about them, not because of a physical process, that's not true. I mean, are you of the opinion that the tree crashing in the forest makes no sound if there's nobody around to observe it? No, sound is a physical thing. It physically exists. You can measure it. It has a physical impact on things and in its surroundings. Existence is absolute. Existence is not arguable. Things either exist or they don't. Oh, you are a solipsist. Okay, well, I mean, you know, we're not gonna agree then. That's fine. Aren't black holes directly observable? The light bends around them. But that's what I mean though, is like, but some black holes, like, are only, like, we only know about them because of the impact that they have on other things around them, including the light around them. Like, black holes are directly observable in that we have come to recognize their impact on other things as being like, that's how we observe black holes, but still technically the black hole itself is not directly observable, but it has impacts on other things. Anyway, I enjoy talking about these things, and I know that not everybody else does, so literally developed OCD because of a fear of hell. I was constantly repeating the prayer to accept Jesus into my heart because I would worry that the first time I did it, I was too young to understand, and so it wouldn't count. And if I messed up a word, I'd have to start over. Oh, no. I feel like that concrete absolutism that people hold in their beliefs is a huge part of the reason why we can't get along. If you have to be right, then anyone who disagrees with you must be wrong. At that point, you are either forced to, quote, convert, or you mentally implode. I mean, but like, right and wrong are objective, which is why I care about it. Like, if you just don't share my value that objective truth is the most important thing by which we should organize our lives and societies, then that's fine. We have a difference in, like, priorities, which is whatever. But, like, I am objectively correct about things, and other people are objectively wrong about those things. Like, for example, the trans sports issue. Like, if we take this completely away from religion, you know, I am objectively right. People who think that trans women shouldn't participate in women's sports are objectively wrong. I have a bunch of data to back up my position. And like, I feel like it's weird that level of certainty is not considered problematic to most people in this kind of trans community versus like, I don't know, the idea that certainty is like a bad thing is weird. Like, the idea that being like having a definitive right and wrong is a bad thing, like, it again is only when we talk about religion that people say shit like right and wrong are subjective. Like, like, I don't know, man. Well, I guess, in a broader sense, right and wrong is, a moral conversation, which can be somewhat subjective, but like we should still organize our moral principles based on shared fundamental truths, like that suffering is a bad thing, for example. That's funny. Jojo Tater says, devil's advocate, maybe religion is actually good because it forces us atheists to get really good at recognizing and considering and countering fallacies, like it's training for our mental immune systems. That's funny. I don't know. That feels a little objectifying of religious people, but, I do think it's an amusing proposition. I'm glad that drama on Blue Sky has resulted in such an interesting and stimulating conversation for us today. MK Ultra. I I guess I don't know like what you're trying to allude to, Mersh, there. Like, of course, it's probably a broad topic, so it's hard to delve into. Anyway, that was like almost an hour, I think, of just fucking talking about that. So if you're here and you haven't yet hit the like button, consider hitting the like button. We're very close to hitting 69. I don't know if we will do that, but, it's going to be cool. And I do have one more thing that I want to talk about before we get into the news. Or, like, frankly, I still need to organize all of the news things from today. Excuse me. Ah! Burpee, burpee. My cat is still sleeping adorably. If we get to the stream goal, maybe I'll pick up the cat. And then that's how I'll show off how strong I am, is by holding the cat. Might have to get new water here soon, too. I just want to say as my last comment on the subject that at the same time that everybody was calling Zinnia Jones like a violent anti-Semite and saying that she's a militant atheist in her religion of atheism, that all was happening at the same time as two people I follow retweeted a known rapist in the community, which was a weird day. make a bitch take LSD and watch Sissy Hypno. Call that gay. Call that M gay ultra. True. All right, I'll pull that link up for later, Mersh. Thank you. Okay. I think I'm going to do this as a little segment for the channel, okay? I would like to take a moment to address some conversation that we've had on this channel before, and the way in which I think people are misunderstanding a position that I have. And I want to address it because I think that we should reframe things in the way that we discuss abuse in this instance. I have covered situations where people have been alleged to be abusive before. We talked about Poppy and Xena, the allegations against them. We've talked about Sophie from Mars. And in the Sophie from Mars video, where she was accused by a girlfriend of being like physically abusive, basically, I have this position that I think people don't understand. And that's why I want to address it again and discuss it with chat here. Because something that I've said is that I think people maybe don't know when they're being abusive in some cases. Maybe even in most cases. Like, there are behaviors that are considered abusive, right? And what we do right now and how we narrativize this for ourselves right now. I see people saying stuff like, my abuser or abusers. And I think people have it in their head that people who do abusive things are necessarily doing it on purpose because they want to and they enjoy it. And I tried to make this argument that people are probably more unaware of what they're doing than you think. I think that it's comforting to believe that an abuser is intrinsically an abuser, because it means that we would never do that. Like, we could never do that. Some people have portrayed this as me defending abusive people, saying like, oh my God, you're defending abusers by saying that maybe they don't know what they're doing. I'm like, in the same way that I am anti-racist, I don't say, oh, I'm not racist, because I think that that creates in me a situation where I could be doing something that is racist, but I can just decide that it's not racist because I'm doing it. And if I'm not racist, then the action couldn't be racist, especially if it's well-meaning. So, think of something like touching a black person's hair without their permission. Like, you might not mean it in a way that is harmful, but they experience it as one of many violations of their bodily autonomy, and a white person feeling like they have ownership over their body and whatever. Like, so if we can acknowledge in this situation that, like, I could be racist without meaning to, then I also think that we should take a similar framework to abusive behaviors. Because, like, I've been in situations where people are doing and saying fucked up things to me, but then, like, things go back to normal very quickly later. And they can be good people most of the time. But then, like, you get in an argument and, like, you trigger something within them and they kind of, like, become different. And they say things that you're like, you normally wouldn't say that to me. Like, why are you doing it now? And I think that what you have to do is you have to create an environment where you know that anyone could potentially do something abusive, even if they're well-meaning. And then teach people what abuse looks like. Show them what it means. Show them why that thing is not good. Like, some parents will, like, punish their teenager. Like, their teenager's been sneaking out recently, and so they punish them by taking the door off the hinges. Well, taking the door off the hinges is, like, an abusive violation of privacy. And like, people deserve privacy in their home. That is part of an abuse case that you could build. Maybe the kid is sneaking out for a reason too. Not getting into that right now. But, like, well-meaning people don't understand that what they're doing is abusive. And because they don't think of themselves as an abuser, and, like, you don't want people to have to go through, like, an internal, like, oh my God, I am an abuser process before they can start addressing their abuse. Yeah, I think everyone has abusive tendencies and looks for acceptable targets. I mean, like, I think that everybody is trying to have their needs fulfilled. Like, Baphomet is the one who said everyone has abusive tendencies. I think that we just live in a society where, like, being manipulative is normal and hitting your kids is normal. So, yeah, of course, like, if these behaviors are normalized, people are not going to think they're wrong. Martian Envy says, I agree. Some people are really unaware of how their behavior is abusive or harmful. Recently, someone close to me said something transphobic, and I didn't realize, or they didn't realize it, but they caught my reaction and asked to be educated. Right, yeah. We have to have some way. And, like, obviously, if someone is harming you and they are not receptive to you saying, hey, this is harmful to me, I'm not saying stay in that situation. I'm not trying to say, like, as a victim, you need to try to explain nicely to your abuser what's happening, or, like, whatever. If this person is toxic in your life, You have permission to just leave them for any reason, even if they're not being toxic. You can end a relationship at any time, and I'm not suggesting that you try to heal someone around you who is hurting you, right? What I am saying is that this black and white form of thinking means that we can't acknowledge our own culpability. Yeah, true. If we just taught kids better emotional skills from the get-go, that would probably help a lot. Ember, this is really important. Ember says, I have spoken with people who abused me years later, and many times they were simply acting out of emotion and didn't have any intention to harm. They just didn't care that I was harmed. Or like, it's... I'm saying this as a victim of abuse, right? I just want to be clear too, when I am talking about this, like, I was physically abused by my mother for years. I do not speak to her anymore. Like, I have been in relationships where people have demeaned me and spoken to me in ways that are unacceptable. Like, I've gone through it, okay? But also, I have done things that are manipulative. I have said things that are unacceptable to say to somebody. I have acted out in ways that hurt people around me, right? Because also the dynamic of like victim and abuser, so in an individual relationship, there is typically like one person who is driving the conflict. Mutual abuse is not supported in the literature. But that doesn't mean that like there's a kid who's getting, hit at home by their dad, and then they go to school and they bully a kid and like beat up that kid, right? Victims can also be aggressors. Not saying that statistically that's the overwhelming majority or anything, whatever. Some people are just mean. Some people are just like physically lacking in empathy. Some people just do not care what happens to people around them, right? That is a true thing that happens psychologically. I think that is a vanishing minority. Most people are just, this is the thing that I hear most often. People are just trying to be honest. Like the example that I've given is the person who is, let's say the person is feeling suicidal in the face of their partner breaking up with them. Like their partner's about to break up with them and they're feeling suicidal and they say, I'm going to kill myself if you leave me, In the moment, that person is just raw. That's pure honesty. Like, that's how they feel in the moment. That is extremely manipulative and controlling, ultimately, because you're saying, like, you can't leave me or I will kill myself. And therefore, if I kill myself, it's your fault, right? Obviously, that's fucked up. But that doesn't mean that person is, like, deliberately being abusive. And that, like, most abusers are deliberately being abusive. I do not think that is the case. I think if I continue on this subject for much longer, I'm running the risk of being extremely repetitive. But if you actually want to stop abuse, what we currently do is wrong. The way that we currently do things. You're an abuser. I'm a victim. Like people spin up these narratives. And I just think it's extremely unproductive. If we acknowledge that well-meaning people can do abusive things, if we can describe abusive behavior without essentializing people down to, you are an abuser, I think that would actually result in a broader ability to tackle those things. Again, in the same way that I'm anti-racist. So hopefully that brings some clarification to the conversation. I think that this is an area in which we need to fundamentally change our approach. So... I feel like I've covered all the bases. Does it feel like I need to include anything else before I wrap that segment? I just want to clarify, Lulu, that narcissistic people do not lack empathy. That is like sociopaths lack empathy, like physically lack empathy. Narcissism doesn't have anything to do with like a physical lack of empathy. Anyway, I'll go ahead and wrap that there. This is just going to be an extra little video that goes on the channel. aside from the news this week, because I feel like this is a repeat thing I'm running into where people do not understand what I'm trying to say. So I wanted to get those thoughts out there, but I'll shut up now. Yeah, true. It would be really hard to believe in rehabilitation and also that abuser is an innate quality. Like, why is it that leftists are out here saying we should switch to a rehabilitative model of our justice system, but also if you ever do anything bad, you're bad forever? That's a really good observation. Kane says, therapy for me is about unlearning all the casually abusive behavior I thought was normal growing up. I think society tolerates or even accepts this stuff, and it's pretty ubiquitous. Yeah. NPD has a lack of functional empathy, but not always low empathy at all. Right. Yeah. Like, I do think that there's a difference there. Lack of functional empathy versus lack of ability. Like, I think that narcissists understand the impact that their actions have on others and that they are deeply ashamed of that. In fact, that is what I have read in the literature, that narcissists feel a deep sense of shame about how they behave toward other people, but changing that behavior means acknowledging that they're doing something wrong, and that's so painful to them that it's literally less painful to them to just keep mistreating people and feeling that shame cycle versus like taking what feels like the enormous step of saying, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I can't do this, like I'm sorry I did this. I need to change, whatever. Like, that is just a huge hurdle for them to get over, as I understand it. Baphomet says, I would sooner trust the U.S. justice system than a lot of these lefties who claim to be pro rehabilitation, if I'm being brutally honest here. I think that a lot of people are retributive. They have this sense of retributive justice, and that is not how we should function in a society. NB says, I'm personally thinking that I have tried to change my approach when dealing with neurodivergent people and people with mental illness. I realize a lot of my own trauma response was to dehumanize my abuser when they are also human and need empathy, even if I'm not the one to help them or be part of their lives anymore. Yeah. I think, yes. As a kind of last note, I think this is a really great observation from Martian NB. Victims can dehumanize their abusers as a way of protecting themselves and as a way of their trauma response. I think that that response makes sense in some cases, because I do think that people find it very challenging, this idea that they should be empathetic toward their abuser. People kind of reject that on premise, and how that functions is that the victim reduces their abuser down to just one trait. They're just abusive. That's all they are. And I have to protect myself from that. So anybody who does that thing again, that's abusive, and I'm not going to talk to that person either. It's a way of protecting yourself. It means shutting down. It is very painful, the idea of being empathetic to someone who has hurt you. I have done it over and over and over again, and unfortunately that's part of being a human being in society, is like, in order to heal from anything, radical acceptance and understanding that other people's behavior makes sense in context. My mom was physically abusive, and I can look back and say, I can see the areas where she was struggling. I can see the areas where she was a good mom. My mother physically abused me, and she was a good mom. Both of those things can be true. She sacrificed a lot for her kids. I will never speak to her again. These things can exist together at the same time. She was dealing with mental health issues. She did not have enough support. She was working many overtime hours and going to school, trying to make life better for her kids. And she was abusive and hurt me in a way that I have had a very difficult time recovering from. So I'm sorry that these issues are so complicated. But like you will not heal unless you can have empathy for people who do fucked up shit to an extent. Like, I'm sorry. That just is how it is. Fucking true, Baphomet says, if you think it's acceptable to ruin people's lives over their online wrongdoing, then you are more punitive than the U.S. justice system. I don't know that you meant online wrongdoing, but I think that that's kind of the context in which this is coming up. My best friend has who with NPD does have low empathy for strangers, but I don't think that makes him bad, as it doesn't lead to him doing bad things. Yeah, totally. My best friend of over 20 years is a diagnosed narcissist. Self-actualization was actually a massive step for him. Years of therapy plans. I'm very interested in NPD. I would like to learn more about it, especially like how how do you deal with someone who's displaying those traits and stuff like that? My internet crimes are safe. I had to forgive myself for many things in order to forgive others. I realized many times the dysfunctional relationships were mirroring back to me what was within myself. I was attracting my own problems without realizing it. Listen. Yeah, that's a level of like self-awareness that a lot of people simply do not have. I honestly struggle to still believe in rehabilitative justice these days. More and more, life convinces me that while people have the capacity for change, the vast majority never will. Yeah, I mean, I think that we have to start changing things for young people, you know? It's entirely possible that there are older people who are not savable. Okay, this week, I was at the grocery store, and there was a guy being super aggro to one of the employees for no reason. It was one of those like, why are you looking at me? What's up? And I was like, dude, like, can that person be fixed? You know, like, what do you do with somebody who's like, and the person that he was doing this to was like a young, kind of skinny grocery store worker, you know? And for him to just be like, what's up? Why are you looking at me? It's like, dude, the kid works in customer service and he's looking at you because you're standing there. He just glanced at you because you're standing there, you know? And now you're getting all aggro. And now he's looking at you more because now you're like, what's up? Why are you looking at me? I'm like, bro, calm the fuck down. And I was thinking about it afterwards and I'm like, is there any solution to that problem? What do you do with that person? I kind of think there's only one thing you can do with that person. It's not a question I want to answer. Yeah, I think people should be allowed to grow and change. Yeah. Like, if people choose to change, we should let them. We should accept that they're different. We should accept that they've changed their mind and their ways. But, like, if people are not interested, like, what do you do with a rabid dog? I don't, like, you know what I'm saying? Anyway. That's exactly why I can't work customer service. Yeah. The kid did the right thing. He was just like, okay. After this guy was like, I'm just wondering why you're looking at me. The kid was just like, okay. And then he picked up a little thingy and said, can I get the manager to the front? And I was like, okay, you did what you were supposed to do. Men with blood pressure issues have a tendency to go aggro at mild triggers, like your blood pressure is too high. Mm. I genuinely believe that the Donald Trumps and Andrew Tates of the world have irrevocably damaged a generation of men. Like, I don't believe most of these people will ever get better. I think back to Schwarzenegger talking about growing up in Austria, seeing a generation of broken men. Yeah, I do remember that quote. He was like, yeah, these broken men who were forced to participate in the Nazi regime, they would like come home and beat their wives, and they were so ashamed of themselves, and they would drink themselves to sleep every night and beat their kids and stuff. Like, how do you fix that? That's trauma. That's deep trauma. What do you do with a drunken sailor? Put him in the brig until he's sober. I doubt there are people that don't want to change. Do you think Elon Musk wants to change? Because if there's even one person, then, that breaks that expectation. The current system is a pound of flesh over making sure it doesn't happen again, whatever it is. And also, like, a large number of people are okay with shipping immigrants to that prison in El Salvador, which is pretty scary. Yeah, it is very scary. That's an interesting point. Phoebe says, I think it's a lot harder to know how to change than to want to change. I think that does kind of feed into what I was saying earlier about narcissists. Like, there are probably a lot of people who and I'm not saying like people with narcissistic personality disorder, because those behaviors exist on a spectrum, right? There are people who have, what is it called? Narcissistic injury, who respond to like ego injury in the way that like is narcissistic in its like pattern. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they have fully like the personality disorder. But like those people probably on some level would like to change, but it just feels so insurmountable. Like how to change feels like an impossible question. Martian Envy says, there are deaf people who don't want to change, and my father is one of them. I need something else to happen between now and Wednesday so that I can have another diatribe on Wednesday. No. My dad is a self-righteous twit. He won't change because he won't admit that his Christian ass has a problem in the first place. Yeah. Some people seem to revel in being broken. Yeah, I can agree with that. Some people seem almost proud of their dysfunction, which is fucking insane to me. Yeah, according to my Christian dad, the rest of us are just too sensitive. Which is so interesting. Like, tell a narcissist they're too sensitive. I dare you. I'm fidgeting with my nail clippers and I dropped them like a goober. Lots of people refuse therapy even if they could access it. Yeah, there's this. Some people are like, well, I don't need therapy. You're the one with the problem. Like, well, my problem is you not communicating in a way that is based on, like, evidence practice for good relationships. My mom has changed by contrast, and honestly, it's refreshing to see someone try and mess up sometimes, but has made so much progress. Proud of your mom, for sure. I'm glad that, it's possible to continue having a relationship with her. Ego being too weak to withstand accountability. Yeah. Like, by telling them that they're prone to ego injury, you are injuring their ego. Yeah, Kristen points out that late-stage capitalism has done a lot of damage to people, and if a person is born into poverty, they only have like a 4% chance of escaping it, which could potentially mean that like poverty leads people to be abusive because of the stresses. Yeah, I mean, poverty causes all kinds of problems. If you're at your wit's end every day, like you don't have the emotional regulation skills to then handle like kids who are acting up. So of course, like hitting the kid gets an immediate like behavior change, and if you don't know better and you're like, well, my parents hit me and I turned out okay, then like, yeah, of course there's like a complex web of things going into like poverty being a contributing factor to you abusing your kids. Again, like I recognize that was probably, I was not a bad kid though, to be clear. Like I definitely at no point deserved to get hit at all, or like even to get in trouble. My mom would do something like, she would ground me from my Nintendo DS that I had just gotten for Christmas, and then she would just, so it would start as like a 2-week thing, but then it would just fucking expand. And I was a good kid and I got good grades. And I didn't start acting out until I was a teenager, but I didn't live with her anymore at that point. So I was a good kid and I did not deserve that shit. I understand that my mom probably was just extremely stressed out, and she had that normalized where like her mom was physically abusive to her too, you know? Fucking true. Gayfesh says, my response to people saying my parents spanked me and I turned out okay is to say, you grew up to be someone who defends beating children. Fucking true. My mom's been putting in some work as well. She still tends to deflect over directly taking responsibility, but she's noticeably better than the days of yelling at me for my shirt being a couple shades too dark at a wedding. Yeah, it's a process for everybody. Yeah, totally, Drea. When you live in a very dangerous environment, it is too easy to build impenetrable walls that that nobody can breach to hurt you. Unfortunately, that also means nobody can reach you to help you. Truly, I shut down so hard when I am triggered. Like sometimes for days, I'm like, don't talk to me, don't look at me, don't touch me. Like I get really upset. And that also means that you close yourself down to reconciliation. And then at a certain point, you just stop being shut down and things kind of go back to normal, but then there's no resolution still. Yeah, shout out to the moms making progress, I guess, true. Oh my god, Byron, that's a whole fucking thing too, a whole can of worms. The Venn diagram of people who are pro spanking, but who also say that affirming trans kids is child abuse. It's gotta be like this. It's gotta be like not quite a full circle, but like very, very close to a full circle. I just look like I'm jacking off my unicorn head dick. Anyway. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna have to start actually thinking about this news segment here. Clip that? You clip that. You guys can do that, you know? I have that turned on. Isn't that a Robot Chicken sketch? I don't remember. I haven't watched Robot Chicken in forever. Oh, true. The Venn diagram of people who circumcise their infants but denounce genital mutilation. Yeah. The number of people who would have clitorectomy done on a child with ambiguous genitalia versus the ones who denounce genital mutilation. It's like fucking, you gotta be shitting me here. The clip thing is broken for me. Sorry. I mean, it's supposed to, I don't know. If it's not working, then that's on YouTube. Thanks, Daniel. My hair is a little bit needing to be washed, but thank you. I might have to get some more water before we move on to the next segment. Unicorn head dick. True. It's like, you know, the chin strap makes sense But the fucking forehead one, I don't think does make very much sense. Like, who's getting something out of that? I'm sure someone is getting something out of that, but I find it hard to relate to. Anyway, sorry. Phoebe says, family therapy sounds terrifying. Just imagine being queer and going with your cishet family and you say that you're queer and the therapist just shoots you. That's probably not what happens, of course, but that's hilarious. Yeah, congrats on the progress you've made with your mom, Martian NB. That's cool. Okay, let's start thinking about how we're going to cover the news today. I think regrettably, I only have like 2 positive news stories. No, I guess I do have, well, yeah, I kind of only have 2 positive news stories. I went to family therapy and for me it was a nightmare. Yeah. Oh no, my computer is starting to get a little bit tired of my shit right now. Okay, so fucking Christ. Okay, I'm trying to think. Okay. I want to start with a trans related story, even if like some of these other things are less directly trans related. I don't think I need to talk about the texting my war plans accidentally thing because fucking everybody's talking about that. Oh, we got a clip? What? Oh, okay. The Venn diagram. Thanks. Thank you, Byron. Thank you. That's fun. Awesome. I don't actually know how clipping works on YouTube. Is it just like when people go to watch the VOD, they can see that the clip came up? I don't know. It's fun though. It's cute. Okay, we have to start with a trans story. Let's maybe start with this bathroom thing. Honestly, I think family therapy is sort of pointless without all parties and personal therapy too. I mean, it just depends on like where is everybody at emotionally? What are your goals as a group? 69 likes. Thank you. That's quite nice. Yeah, that's good stuff. Oh, did you guys see my new dragon? You can see a better picture of him on my Patreon. I think I took a picture and uploaded it, but it's Drogon from the game, not the game, from the Game of Thrones. Yes, that's what I was trying to say. He's going rawr. Can't see him very well, but whatever. Just kind of trying to tie this area together. Good or bad story? So typically what we do, Sophie, we start with like 3 or 4 bad stories, and then we'll do like 3 good stories. That's kind of how we're organizing this. Clips are basically timestamps you can share independently from the whole video. Cool. An invisible dragon? True. Family therapy seems like it's got to have buy-in from everyone involved for it to not be a waste of time, but I've never done it. Yeah, no. I think that family therapy... Thank you, Drea. Happy belated birthday for the 5 tier 3 subscriptions. Good gracious. Thank you so much. Martian NB, YS Project, Lemony Limelight, Shakespeare, and Mosh on Toast. Enjoy your tier 3 subscriptions. Thank you, Drea. That's very, very, very generous. Oh my god, I don't even... I'm just gonna look on PayPal and be like, how much of a donation was that actually? Instead of having to do the math. PayPal. No therapy works on someone who doesn't want to change. Yeah, thank you, Drea. Yes, so obviously if you're doing family therapy or couples therapy or something like that, there is basically no point to doing it. Wow, thank you, that was $100. Okay. There is basically no way that it's going to work. If one of the people thinks that it's a waste of time, or if they think, well, I don't have anything I need to address or change, like clearly that is not going to do anything. My mom tried to take me to family therapy because she was trying to have me labeled as the problem child. And when it became obvious that the therapist was not going to play along with that narrative, then we stopped going to family therapy, which was like, we went there once. Mayo side into a sea of purple. True. Okay. We're buffing. We're buff. Do we want buff or do we want cat? Do we have a preference? Because he's here. And he's sleeping and I will wake him up. I wasted so much time on family therapy not realizing that she wasn't there in good faith. Yeah. Purple is best color. I think, like, having someone agree that you have communication issues together. Is the cat buff? I mean, I guess technically he has to be pretty muscular in order to move around his fat. My brother stopped therapy as a teen when he found out the therapist was sharing stuff with our parents. No, that's not good. Okay, I'll just give you both, I guess. Since y'all can't figure it out. I still really appreciate that I'm just like, I just have like naturally wide lats and big biceps. Thanks, Mom. That's something I got from her genetically. That's why I'm never going to get arm tattoos. I don't want to cover up my beautiful biceps. But always my left arm is like bigger than my right. Yeah. I had to switch from the mobile client to the web client. Okay, clipping doesn't work on mobile, apparently, is what we've learned. Do I still have a tiny bit of chicken broth. 69 likes. Yeah. Oh my god, really? I'm honestly glad I don't have any tattoos because they're using tattoos as a pretense to lock people up now. Really? I hadn't seen that yet. Do you mean like in the context of like this person has tattoos, therefore they're a gang member, let's ship them to El Salvador? El Salvador? Hello in a box. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Okay, I did buff for the first one. If we get to 200 for some reason, I'll get the cat. I'll wake him up. He's a poor baby. He's a poor baby who I accidentally gave an asthma attack earlier. I felt so bad. There was a guy who sent to El Salvador for having an autism awareness tattoo. Fucking Jesus Christ. Like, this tattoo could be construed as a Catholic tattoo for me. I guess I really need to get my gender symbol tattoo covered up, which I would like to do anyway. I don't know. It's an incantation. It's a Latin incantation. Oh no. Yeah, get a workout routine started. Starting with walks in the morning is a great idea. Oh, are you back in the US? It was weird being away from my cats for so long. Oh, yeah, you were gone last week. Yeah, odd how animals who pretend you don't exist unless they want something from you happen to worm their way into one's heart. That's awesome in a box. They say, I donated... Hold on, what are your pronouns? What are they? Yeah, they donated time today at a kitchen cooked for the local trans community making vegan and gluten-free cake. I'm in pain now, been on my feet all day. That's so awesome. That's an example, like give your time, like give the gift of your service to others in your community. Give it selflessly, give it often. some of these tattoos are ones they had when they were given legal status too. Yeah, that's crazy. I feel, Fesh, you're like, I'm glad that I don't have any tattoos because they're being used as justification. And it's like, not if you're white though, right? Like, that's kind of the thing is like all these, if you're white and you have tattoos, that's fine. Like, I remember having a conversation with my partner a couple years ago where he was like upset with someone for not using their turn signal. And he was like, God, that should be, the punishments for that should be harsher than they are. And I was like, well, that's still only gonna like that person was white. Like her not using her turn signal is not going to mean that she actually gets in trouble for not using her turn signal. It's just gonna create a justification to be more fucked up to brown people. Yes, community direct action and support. Yeah, so far, truly, yeah. I'm still queer. That's true. I guess, yeah, like I'm less visibly queer than I used to be. So there are a lot of like privileges that I have that I'm just hoping I can continue to bank in on or cash in on, which I don't know how long that is going to last. It sucks having like moved my entire life across the country because I wanted to be safe and like I still don't feel safe. Yeah, like having an autism tattoo and getting in trouble for that is crazy. There's no Fourth Amendment if you're brown. How are they just taking people off the street? That's so crazy. They did it during the George Floyd protests too. Yeah, that feeling of not being safe, right? Like, it's definitely making me feel like I need to get back into some kind of combat training. I don't think I'm physically well enough to do combat training, but I want to. Wow, Moshe says in London yesterday they arrested 6 people in a Quaker house, which is a place of religion, for planning a peaceful protest. To be clear, they were not protesting, they were planning a peaceful protest. Jesus fucking Christ. Oh, that's cool, Shakespeare. As a community organizer, currently a leader in the largest peer-led support network for trans women and femmes in our state, I am in charge of decoration for the Minneapolis Trans Prom this year. Nice. We aren't safe. It sucks you have to feel that way, but it is a valid feeling. Yeah, I know. Like, that's the difficult thing is, like, it's not wrong to feel that way. It's just about, like, how do I keep that feeling in proportion to where I can still function without, like, completely compartmentalizing it? I've been fruitlessly making chainmail. Listen, that's good mindfulness practice. Elon Musk, the savior of free speech. Phoebe says, whenever I've thought I was safe, it was more just feeling accustomed to not feeling safe and being comfortable with it. Yeah, that does make sense. I've been designing fonts. Nice. Yeah. I have all kinds of creative stuff that I want to start doing. Uh, anyway, so I am going to step away really quick and just kind of take a midstream break, drink some water, go to the bathroom, that kind of thing. When I get back, I am gonna let's actually figure out what we are going to discuss today. Get the show in order, and then we'll do our little segment where we talk about the news for the week. Does that sound good? I wonder if I should kind of save that toward the end, since whenever I am wrapping up the segment, it sounds like I'm wrapping up the stream, even though I'm not. So anyway, I'm wondering if I should maybe save that toward the end anyway. But, wait, what was the story? What do you mean? What story? What do you mean? Did I say something and like it didn't expand on it? I do that sometimes. The ADHD is powerful. Intermission. Yeah. Ooh, I should continue playing Jazz Dog during the intermission. Wouldn't that be great? Okay. Well, I won't be gone for long, and I'll leave you with some music to keep yourself entertained, and then I'll come back. Where's Jazz Dog? Oh, did I close it? No! I closed the Jazz Dog. Come back. Nope, not what I wanted. Come back, Jazz Dog. Nope, that's not it either. Nope, that's not it either. I closed a bunch of tabs earlier because my computer was struggling. Dude, how long ago did I close that tab? Okay, there it is. Great. Found it. Now I'm going to close all those other tabs that I don't need anymore. Okay, now we will listen to Jazz Dog. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I'm back. That didn't take very long. I just needed a little break. Just a little break. But now we're here. And there's 70 likes on the video. Hell yeah. We've made it to the initial stream goal. Hell yeah. Always good. I've been getting into bookbinding and printmaking. Hell yeah. So some hobbies that I've recently decided I'm going to explore are watercolor painting, oil painting. Recently I've been putting together Lego and stuff. I want to get back into doing crochet so that I have something to do at the yarn night at the yarn store. Um, those are the new ones, really. I'm sure that there's something else. I mean, I want to get into like hiking and outdoors stuff, which means I have to recondition my body, which is hard to do because I am responding very poorly to exercise right now. But yeah, it's whatever. Okay, let's start talking about how we're going to organize today's show. We need to start with a strong trans-related story. Excuse me, because... I'm sorry, I just drank a bunch of water. Okay, I'm good. So it needs to start off as a good trans story because that's what people come to my channel for. So if I start a video with something else, people are going to click out. So we have to start with a trans story and get people invested, right? So I don't know if this is a big story or more of an honorable mention that a cis woman who worked at Walmart was fired from her job because a customer accused her of being trans in the bathroom. So that one I think is more of an honorable mention. Maybe we'll put that toward the end a little bit. What is this? Okay, I don't need that. Trump admin threatens to pull California school funding unless it forcibly outs trans students. That is one that we could start with. And we could talk about it in a little bit of detail. But we don't really need to go into a lot. This is more, we're more talking about the fact that this makes, or like that this is one of the ways that they can functionally make things illegal, even if they don't actually make them illegal, is by just denying funding for ideological purposes. So that's one. It's like, okay, Georgia woman has to go over here. Protecting trans kids, I guess, is a good way to start. Refusing, like, I don't, like, what, man, like, what do you even say about the fact that Elon Musk is breaking Wisconsin law and yet, like, no one is doing anything about it? Like, he's like paying people to vote, which is fucking just explicitly illegal. And the attorney general tried to sue about it, but the appeals court will not, like, basically say, Musk, you're not allowed to do that. I'm like, why did you not fucking arrest this guy? I don't know. Anyway, I don't know that I have much else I can really say about that, so I think that might have to go kind of toward, like, more of an honorable mentions part of the show. The U.S. is coming for disabled people. That is something that I want to kind of prioritize today. I also want to prioritize this miscarriage thing. Texans might have to show ID to buy a dildo online. Maybe I'll save this. Or, like, I don't know if really this fits into what we want to talk about today. Like, yeah, I don't think that really fits for me today. So let's just take that one out. That's not a problem. So, Trump executive order banning vote by mail. Let's put that second, because that'll... So we'll start with a trans-related story, and then the middle story, the executive order about banning vote by mail and, like, making your driver's license has to match your birth certificate. That is something that will affect trans people and cis women. And then the abortion thing is more of a cis women-focused issue, but obviously still affects trans people. Then we can move into disability justice. Then we can do the couple honorable mentions for today. Then a brief interlude, and then 3 positive news stories. So for the positive news stories, we will start with new poll shows massive opposition to the active U.S. government censorship of trans people. Then we will talk about Kat Abu Ghazala. And that should be it for today. Unless somebody has, like, a third positive story that they want to throw in. But, yeah, I'm filing my nails with an actual file tool as long as my arm, because that's how I express my gender. That's awesome. I love that. Is there another positive news item that we should add? I mean, that'll be a pretty full That'll be a pretty full show regardless. You know, I've actually done that too. I have almost definitely used a file that I use for filing metal to file my fingernails. Not like a lot, but if I like have a rough spot on my nail, I'll just like smooth it down real quick. That's fun. That's good stuff. Mm. Mr. Baby, he's snoring. You can hear him like. That's what his snores sound like. Oh, I love him so much. He's so wonderful. Aren't you a sweet little baby? Aren't you a good boy? Sweet baby boy? He's good. Okay, let me start copy pasting all of this into my news document, and then we'll actually begin talking about it. Again, shout out to Jazz Dog for making some of the coolest fucking music. Okay. Oh, no, not what I wanted. Paste without formatting. There we go. Alejandra. No, gosh darn it. I keep doing that. Paste without formatting. I'm like, I'll get this more organized later. I'm like literally just copy pasting the headline and then copy pasting the link. And usually my notes are a little bit more organized than that. Gosh darn it. What is the paste without formatting is Control-Shift-V. Okay, great. Great. Love that. Good to know. Sometimes I go and my brain goes just to let you know how deeply embedded that is. I'm sorry. I will start talking again and being entertaining in a moment. Oh my god, my eyeball. Okay, and then we have a couple of good stories. That is a relief. Always trying to have the good stories. Does anybody have any recommendations for call to action this week? I was gonna make the call to action phone banking or like volunteering with a campaign, just because like there are a lot of progressives and even trans people showing up and starting to run for office. So I was just kind of wondering what people think about that. Oh my god, I did it again. All right. That's all the notes that I have for today. I keep a notes folder because it makes it very easy to do citations on my YouTube actual video upload, and also because it makes it easy to find things later. If someone's like, hey, what happened with that thing? I'll be like, okay, I saved a link. Hold up. Let me check. I'm surprised I don't mess up copy paste shortcuts considering I'm surprised I don't mess them up more often considering I swap between Mac, Linux, and Windows almost every day. That is pretty surprising. I'm guessing that each UI just feels so unique that you're like programmed to do certain shortcuts with a certain UI. PSC is Palestinian Solidarity Campaign. They're doing organized boycotts with printable "Don't Buy Apartheid" posters. Nice. Nice. Cool. Okay. Let's start getting in the zone. I missed the memo on how everyone got their names changed to purple. Someone gave a bunch of tier 3 subs, donated a very large chunk of money, and that was Drea, and it was very kind of her, and a bunch of people now get to enjoy that. So, yeah. Oh man, I'm gonna shower tonight, and it's gonna be glorious. I think there was a protest against the swastika ads. I did see that there was like a pretty widespread protest kind of thing happening at Tesla dealerships, right? Like we're seeing another version of those. It's great how much protest action we're seeing. There was the March for Science, there's these anti-Tesla ones, there's like I saw another one that was going to be like the sort of typical at the state capitol thing, just kind of standing in opposition to the dismantling of our democracy. Later, Mersh. Have fun out there in the world. My mom went to one yesterday. Hell yeah. I love all these moms showing up, getting out there. 400 people. Whoo. That's wonderful. Okay. All right. Hello and welcome. I'm Luxander. This is our weekly review. All of the important news that you missed last week in one place. We will talk about some disturbing, perhaps negative news stories first, and then positive stories at the end, with a call to action at the end to help you feel like, I have a sense of like, what can I do after this? Instead of just feeling like, oh no, I'm inundated with bad news all the time. Okay? Join us. People are starting to say Tesla with a hard R. Wow. That's crazy. Anyway, I'm trans, and we talk about trans stuff for the most part. We're going to try to talk about other important things as well as it's relevant, but we're going to start with a trans-related story because that's what we try to do here. So thanks for joining in. Don't forget to hit the like button. That is a quick, easy, free thing that you can do, and let's get into it. I might actually need to fix something with the audio real quick before we get too far. Okay. I just had to make sure that the audio would work. All right. Our first major story today refers to the Trump administration applying pressure to liberal states, trying to get them to do anti-trans things. So we're going to kind of talk about this particular action, and then we will kind of talk about what that means. This one is written by Mira Lazine on Aaron in the Morning website. Thursday, the U.S. Department of Education opened an investigation into California's Department of Education over a law that passed last year, which I believe we covered, that limited the forced outing of trans students to their parents. This bill has been the subject of multiple legal challenges and has become a lightning rod for anti-trans activists who claim it infringes on parental rights. There's now a suggestion that the law may violate the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which is a familiar argument among right-wing opponents of student privacy protections. The part that they leave out is that a judge has already ruled that parents still retain access to educational records, including those that reflect pronoun or name changes. Right, so We talked about this at the time. There are a lot of aspects of this story that we could go into, like various aspects of this situation. So first of all, the parents still have access to the records. It's just a matter of like, are the teachers required to proactively tell the parents of these things? That's a different question. Parents are free to have these conversations with their kids. They're free to ask the teacher, and they are free to review the educational records. So, like, the only thing at issue is, like, the idea that a teacher would be compelled to tell the parents if their kid is identifying as trans or wants to use different pronouns or something, which is, like, a free speech issue, and it raises the question of, like, whose rights matter more? Does a minor have the right to privacy, including from their parents? And do parents' rights, are those so expansive that they override what we normally consider rights, but because these people are minors, that suddenly they do not have the privilege? And what does parents' rights even mean? I believe that parents have responsibilities, but I do not think that they necessarily have the right to know everything about their kids. I think we've all been kids. We've all done stuff that we've kept from our parents, and that's part of growing up, right? There are limits. There's moderation, you know? There's like a too much information and a not enough information, and there's a sweet spot, okay? And I think that we should be creating environments where kids feel safe to tell us anything as parents, and not make them feel like they can tell their teacher but not their parents, because those kids feel that way for a reason. But at issue here in this particular moment is that the Trump administration is now saying, we're going to deny you guys funding. Like, we're going to take away federal funds that go to California's schools. Secretary of Education, whose department is about to be dissolved, Linda McMahon, has said that the agency launched an investigation to, quote, vigorously protect parents' rights and ensure that students do not fall victim to a radical transgender ideology that often leads to family alienation and irreversible medical interventions. So basically, like, they're launching an investigation and threatening the funding. And the reason why I wanted to speak about this in particular, first of all, is like, it's a continuation of a story we already discussed. We discussed the fact that this law passed to protect trans kids, like that teachers are not obligated to tell parents when their kids come out as trans, which is not to say that they are allowed to hide that information. That is different. The issue is of compelled speech. And now them trying to take away funding, basically, and like subject the school district and the state to lawsuits, which could bleed them money out. This is one of the ways in which executive power can be doing overreach, you know, and that they can influence how people are doing things, even if they cannot pass a law. Like, they probably, I don't actually know what the situation would be if someone tried to pass a law on the federal level that said, in every situation, in every state, even the liberal ones, you have to tell a parent if their kid identifies as trans, you know, which seems like a silly thing for the federal government to be getting involved in. Frankly, it seems like a silly thing for any government to be getting involved in. But, you know, we would recognize that at least is pretending to go along the democratic process, right? The passing of a law. But when you do things like just say, we're going to stop sending you money, you're coercing institutions into capitulating to your position without making things strictly legal or illegal. It's part of, like, it's a problem that I do not know how to address within the system, that whoever is in power just gets to decide who gets funding and who doesn't, and that things that need to exist will stop existing without funding, right? Like, they will threaten hospitals saying, we will stop allowing you to work with Medicaid. Like, that's part of what is meant when they say, like, we're going to stop funding you. some of it is literally like they just give money to schools to function, or like they give money to hospitals to function. But it also, for the hospital situation, means like not being able to accept Medicaid and Medicare because those are that's government money, you know? So it's like, okay, do we want to lose the only school in a near enough area that we can get the kid to school on time in the morning? Like, or do we capitulate, restrict free speech, harm trans kids and queer kids, because otherwise there's no school, you know? It gets put in this impossible position in a way where, like, if you care about the kids and you want them to continue having the same support, you want to continue having the same amount of teachers, you want to have extracurriculars for the kids, you want them to be able to go on field trips and everything, like that stuff is severely curtailed if you lose a big chunk of your funding. Ember says the Littlejohn case enshrined in federal law that schools have an obligation to not tell parents things that may risk them being abused or abandoned, which is fair because parents who won't hurt their child, the child will tell. I did not know about that case. I might have to look into it later. But yes, like there are some protections that say, you know, if a kid tells you something, like if a kid tells you I'm being abused at home, it is not the correct thing to do to go to the parents and be like, this kid says they're being abused. What's up with that? Like that kid is just going to get it way worse. Like that kid might die at that point. So, you know, like there are protocols for how to handle these things delicately in order to make sure that a kid is getting the support that they need, and also keeping in mind that in a system that is oriented around child well-being, family integration is like a preferred option so long as the kid is not being overtly abused, you know? Because family separation is in itself so traumatic. Even if there is abuse present, like you have to be very sure before you separate the family, you know? So there is already a framework for all this. So anyway, I don't know that I have like a huge amount. I don't want to stay on this story for too long because we do have a lot to cover today. But yeah, if there were some kind of law that said it's mandatory reporting, they're trying to include trans identity in mandatory reporting, kind of. I had one teacher who helped me get through the system. They had, while I was recently disabled, forcing them to tell these things risks so much abuse. Yeah. Okay. I think that's just about everything I needed to say about that. So let's, again, quickly, if you haven't yet hit the like button, please do that and check your subscription settings. Subscribe and all that jazz. Okay. I like to do calls to action just very briefly in between segments, apparently. It's like, I'm getting it in there, but not enough that people actually click away. Anyway, Trump and his executive orders recently. Wow. Right? Crazy. Anyway, there has been one, this that I'm looking at is from a few days ago. Let me see if there's something more recent. Okay, so the executive order at hand is called Preserving and Protecting the Integrity of American Elections. It was published earlier last week, and there has been, I've got a couple of things open here. Alejandra Carballo posted about this on her Blue Sky account, and this is from before the text was fully released, but we're talking about what's in it still. So Trump signed an executive order that bans vote by mail and would order the defunding of any state that does not follow through with it, as well as it might also involve voter roll purges. So in the state of Oregon and Washington, I am pretty sure that all voting is just done through the mail, which saves a ton of money. And those ballots only get sent out to people who are registered to vote. And typically that involves like having an ID, right? So like people have gone through a verification process in order to register to vote. And then they're registered and then they just get sent this and it's like quick and easy and boom, like never any question as to like why. Or like as to like who really is getting their ballots. Like, oh no, they sent out a bunch of extra ballots. Like, no, this stuff doesn't really happen. So banning order by mail, and then again, simultaneously saying we're going to defund any state that doesn't follow through. So if the states of Oregon and Washington don't like somehow come up with an entire voting apparatus for everyone to start coming in person again, yeah, obviously that would be a huge undertaking that most places would not have an easy time doing. And it is an attempt to undermine fair and free elections going forward. Excuse me. Oh no, dang it. Come back. I closed a tab that I still needed. Oh my god, why? It's like, why does my YouTube page time out while I'm in the middle of a stream? Don't do that. That's bad. Stop that. Jesus Christ, YouTube. Is this stuff enforceable? Well, again, it's complex, the question of whether this is enforceable, and I'll get to that in a minute. I want to talk about like what it is that they're trying to do here. So some of the things that happen here is that it creates another situation where Elon Musk and Doge are going to be like reviewing each state's publicly available voter registration list and available records concerning voter list maintenance, including through subpoena where necessary, which is to say that they could potentially just kick a bunch of people off the voter list, which they don't typically tell you about. One time when I was living in Kansas, they changed the law to where like you needed to provide additional documentation in order to be registered to vote. So they purged the voter rolls, but they didn't tell anybody. So I just went to vote and had to fill out a provisional ballot because I didn't actually have a valid thing. But because that was not explained to me adequately, they weren't like, oh yeah, you need to go re-register to vote and then it'll get counted. Nobody told me that. So when I voted for Obama, it just didn't count. Like it literally just didn't count because they had purged the voter rolls. They don't notify you that your registration to vote has been terminated, and then you're just not registered and your vote doesn't get counted. So that's bad, obviously. According to the Center for American Progress, this executive order makes passports important to guaranteeing an American's right to vote. But roughly half of all adult citizens do not have a passport. And also, Trump has made it illegal for trans people to get passports that match their gender identity. Also, like, having a difference between what's on your ID and like how you present is a thing that could put your votership at risk. Like, someone might accuse you of having a fake ID. The government may deny trans voter registrations, or they may contest and discard ballots cast by trans voters. Some local elections have resorted to using birth certificates to confirm people's citizenship, but this would not be any better for trans Americans because birth certificates are among the most difficult documents to update or accurately reflect chosen name and gender. Existing studies show that 44% of trans adult respondents had updated their name legally on their ID, but only 18% of trans respondents who go by a different name had successfully updated their name on their birth certificate. So this also would harm anyone who has gotten married and changed their name. So this, obviously, like, you're curtailing mail-in ballots, which means you are making it harder for disabled people and elderly people to vote. Also more difficult for anyone with a job who can't take time off work to go vote. Like, it's voter suppression in that normal kind of way where they're just trying to make it harder for people to vote. It doesn't have anything actually to do with preventing fraud, because we know that fraud in voting is very, very small. Like, it doesn't happen very much. This also impacts people who have changed their name. And it's like, okay, what counts as proof of citizenship? If your documentation doesn't match, what happens? Are trans people just going to not be allowed to vote? Hold on, sorry, my brain goofed. I need to drink water. And then, like, are women not going to be able to vote? Or, like, obviously sometimes men change their name to match their woman's name, and, like, sometimes gay people take each other's names, whatever. But, like, the biggest groups of people that this would impact, okay, actually the biggest group of people that this would impact is cis women, because they frequently get married and change their last name. You know, what would you do if you were told that you couldn't vote because your shit didn't match? And, like, most people who change their last name during marriage do not update it on their birth certificate. Would it be sufficient, like, if a cis woman, or a trans person for that matter, if a cis woman had, like, her birth certificate and a copy of her marriage certificate and her current ID, would that bridging document allow her to vote? Would they make it a provisional ballot and ultimately not actually count it? That's an important question. Like, I, as a trans person, I have not changed my birth certificate. So whenever I have to present my birth certificate, I always bring my marriage certificate to say, hey, this is when I changed my name. You can see, like, it shows my previous name and my current name. So this document bridges together my identity documents. Yeah. And of course, the means by which they are planning to make this happen is by denying funding. So that's, again, we're just going to withhold funding from you if you decide not to comply, which, again, is insane because of the increased, it's like, I don't know, there's so much of a burden on states who don't have mail-in ballots. Like, you need so many workers and volunteers. Like, in addition to the people just counting the votes, you need people who are running the poll area. And, like, I do love voting in person. It feels great, but it is a huge negative on every community. And this is all just kind of focusing on, like, whether your name matches, but there is also the question of, like, even if you update your name, even if you're one of those 18% of trans people, or whatever that number was, 18% of trans respondents who had successfully updated their name on their birth certificate, even if you're one of those people, if you can't update the sex on your birth certificate because your state disallows it, or if you have to have a certain surgery that you can't afford or that you don't want, and they won't give you your gender marker change until after you do that invasive procedure. So this is obviously, in a more unilateral sense, going to prevent trans people from being able to vote or having their vote counted. Yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly. Atin, the state of Indiana, you can't change the birth certificate gender, but then you update the passport. So everywhere in the world, except for in your home state, all your IDs match. I need a lot of water sometimes, boys. This author notes, and it's important to note, yeah, it's not just trans and gender nonconforming who should be worried here. Almost every marginalized group will be impacted by this measure in some way. Yes, we already mentioned like disabled people, elderly people, of course, immigrants and people of color who have like difficulty accessing, like immigrants have difficulty accessing documents sometimes, and people of color will just be arbitrarily targeted more. Anyone who may change their name, especially married women, like, you know, not especially, but namely married women. Let me just double check if Alejandra has anything else that I wanted to add here. Oh yeah, and there's potentially a bullet point in there talking about how ballots arriving after election day would not be counted. Obviously that targets mail-in and absentee ballots. And like as at the same time that they're moving to reduce the staffing at the post office, Alejandra asserts that the Trump administration could intentionally slow down mail delivery in blue cities and states to disenfranchise millions of voters, and that the weaponized Department of Justice could also investigate states and falsely declare election fraud, which Trump also tried to do in 2020. So. And someone asked earlier, how enforceable is this? That's kind of the question. And like, as someone who's not from the US, I'm pretty sure, like, how does this work as far as enforceability goes? A lot of these executive orders are, they include language like, this is what we want to be done in accordance with currently applicable law. So like, it technically doesn't change the law in a way. It just creates like an intention for the executive branch. And in like executive orders, I think definitely like the rules say that the executive orders being delivered are not allowed to directly contradict established law that has been placed through the legislative process. Yeah. But this administration is doing illegal shit all the time. And like, that's not my personal opinion. That seems to be what lawyers broadly are saying. So it's, how does this work for people such as military personnel overseas? Yeah, I mean, I think that it does disenfranchise military members as well. They're probably just sort of a side, like a side thing, like, oh, they're being hurt by accident, but it definitely will impact. If absentee voting can't happen, then anyone who is abroad for any reason would have issues having their vote counted. Okay, so we were talking about how women are going to be affected by that voter suppression law. Let's segue into another issue that primarily impacts women, primarily impacts cis women, and people assigned female in general, which is the increased criminalization of pregnancy and things related to pregnancy. or terminating a pregnancy or whatever it is. So in Georgia, homie, can you go away? Why are you here? Okay. In Georgia, someone told me about this before we started the segment here. I had not heard about this until y'all mentioned it to me, so thank you for letting me know when there's important news that needs to be covered. In Georgia, a woman who suffered a miscarriage has been charged after her fetus was found in a dumpster. Basically, this is a criminalization of miscarriage. You know, like, I think what they charged her for was mistreatment of a corpse, basically. There was an autopsy. The fetus was approximately 19 weeks. There were no signs of injury or trauma to the baby. The baby never took a breath. The mom just had a natural miscarriage, right? But she is under investigation with one count of concealing the death of another person and one count of throwing away or abandoning a dead body. If a person is going through that, like a miscarriage, it's traumatic. If the baby, if the person had expected to have a baby, like, because 19 weeks is like halfway through a pregnancy, you probably know that you're pregnant at that time, and you have probably made the decision to keep it, you know? So if you then have a miscarriage, that is traumatic. And not knowing what to do with the baby once it's out of your body is like, okay, I can understand feeling freaked out by that or not knowing what to do. It was never its own person, so I kind of don't know how. It's like, it's not as though an actual, like, living, breathing person was killed and then they just disposed of the body or something, you know? It was a miscarriage. It was a medical event that woman had to go through. I'm starting to get hot. I hate it in here. I'm going to struggle so much during the summer, you guys. Like, I genuinely, I might have to, like, switch to streaming only at nighttime or something. Because, like, my computer has to be on and the lights have to be on and it's really warm in here and my house is very poorly insulated. It sucks. So yeah, basically it just feels like they're doing something horrible to a person who already just suffered something horrible. To, like, criminalize a woman for having a miscarriage and like not knowing what to do with it, like, probably didn't even kind of think that it could be a crime to throw it away any more than it would be a crime to throw away, like, your pads from your period. It's like, it's a biological issue from your body. It's just a fetus, you know? So, like, the attacks on women in this country, and of course, like, a side effect of that is attacks on trans people, trans masculine people, non-binary people assigned female at birth. But yeah, like, she was found unconscious and bleeding and then was arrested. You know, like, for that to be the situation that you're in. There's not much more I can say about it, honestly. I just want to acknowledge that this is horrendous and this is becoming normal in our country. So I think I'm just going to leave that there. Like, I don't think I need to linger on this any longer because you don't need me to explain to you that this is fucked up. Yeah, if you don't know what to do, what do you do? Who do you call? That's probably not a moment where you really want to call the police. But also, she was bleeding out. So she probably wasn't thinking too clearly. Anyway. Let's move on. Beyond that, I'm done with that. So, as we mentioned, denying mail in ballots is a way to harm disabled people and their ability to vote, which is crazy because apparently, like, the majority of disabled people vote Republican, which I guess, anybody can become disabled, right? But that, the administration seems keen to gut any protections for disabled people too. Like, I mean, diversity, equity, inclusion and equity, those things are, have to do with disability a little bit. The Justice Department has removed disability guidelines for US businesses. Basically, their excuse is that they're trying to slim down the amount of time that is spent on figuring out whether you're complying with guidelines. And so part of that is by just like sort of taking away guidelines, it seems. Like, there were some resources which were there to help an employer it's to help the employer understand their employees' disability rights. They took that away. They took away guidance that included questions of whether the Justice Department issues exemptions for mask requirements. And they're kind of just gesturing broadly at like, oh, government regulation is the reason why inflation is so bad. And all these, regulations are crushing the industry and weakening American production. So that's just one thing. Like, they're trying to curb the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. And also, I think this might be touching on those same things maybe, but let's see. Okay. Okay, so it's common among the Republicans to make fun of American Sign Language. Like, so this article is talking about a little bit more broadly, like this cultural thing going on. Basically, right-wingers like Charlie Kirk and Christopher Rufo have been calling ASL interpreters wild human gesticulators who turn these briefings into a farce. And they're saying that it's an absurdity. And a language is an absurdity, is what they're saying, basically. Of course, Elon Musk is also campaigning to bring back the R slur, which, obviously, I don't know. It's one of those, like, if you are autistic, I don't care if you use that term to refer to yourself for the most part, and, like, maybe occasionally to be funny for emphasis, but I do understand why people don't want to normalize the term. This article says, to those with less knowledge of disability history, these attacks might read as, gross, but ultimately toothless. Activists, however, have been sounding the alarm that the incoming administration would be coming for disabled people. Here's the play-by-play. Social media followers take their marching orders, hurling discontent at the specified targets and regurgitating talking points. Because obviously there's this, like, influencer culture where right-wingers are influencing their audience to, like, hate certain people, basically. So, like, yeah, the people start to hate those other folks and they start attacking them. And then eventually these ideas become so ubiquitous that they are adopted by politicians who use them to engage their base. And finally, the talking point becomes the policy itself. And politicians claim they have a mandate from the people to justify stripping away the rights of the marginalized. The accessibility page and all ASL content have been removed from the White House website. Real-life interpreters have been removed from the White House and across multiple federal agencies whose accommodations divisions were dismantled. Alongside diversity and women, words like accessibility and disability have also been listed as grounds to flag or reject grant applications. Obviously, disabled children's right to education under fire because they're getting rid of the parts of the Department of Education that, like, provide services to special needs students, Yeah, I totally get that, gay fesh. It would be like if we were all trying to normalize saying gay as an insult. Like, well, I was called that as a kid. Like, well, that doesn't mean it's okay for you to use it as an insult. You know, if you want to say you are gay in a like reclamatory way, if you want to call yourself an F slur, if you want to call yourself whatever, but like you're not going to go out there and call other people the F slur. Yeah, it is unfortunate. Mosh, yeah, points out that like it sucks that all of this happens so fast. Yeah, that we've spent years and years, like, you know, decades of building these disability protections, and then to have it all taken away. And as always, it's important to contextualize anti disabled sentiment. When people are talking about useless eaters, when people are discussing, you know, like these moochers or these useless useless mouths, or like, oh, these people are just more mouths to feed, whatever the terminology is, there's all kinds of terminology that gets used to discuss what ultimately they will describe as life unworthy of life. And that is a eugenicist sentiment from the 1920s Germany, before Hitler came to power. Like, sometimes disabled people are described as a canary in the coal mine. I don't know if that's exactly, like, I don't know. It's like, which group did they really start with? Did they really start with trans people? Like, do you think that trans people are where this whole right-wing narrative started? Because I think that if you look at the past 7 or 8 years, you could potentially say that, like, disability, like people disregarding the disabled or being prejudiced against the disabled might actually be the point of accelerationism. Like, accelerationism being, you know, the idea that, oh, we just need to let things get much worse quicker so that we can then have our revolution that we want. But like, it seems to me that things began to accelerate really with the COVID-19 pandemic, and like, it's ongoing. It's still hurting people. It's still disabling people. But even the liberal position, even the allegedly progressive position, was basically like, well, it's only going to hurt disabled and old people, so it's okay if we completely stop doing community tracing, go and take masks away and force people to go back to school and everything. Like, that is explicitly saying we want to hurt disabled people, or we don't care if they never get to leave their house again, you know? And that, I think, has been a severe point of acceleration in this. And personally, my opinion is that all kinds of oppression can be tied back into ableism. Like, what is it about Black people that they hate so much? What is it that they say? Well, they think that Black people are unintelligent. They think that Black people are only good for doing labor. Like, that's what these people think. And then we look at like benevolent racism. Like, oh, the idea that Asian people are super smart, that they're more able. And with trans people, what really is the problem with trans people? Well, it's that they're mentally deficient. What's the problem with women? Well, it's that they're weak and they're stupid. You know, like, all of these things, all of these prejudices tie into something about ability, about whether, like, their perceived ability. So to me, I feel like addressing disability is the thing that we must do. It must be part of the process. Because, like, how can you argue, like, when you respond to the idea that, like, well, women aren't stupid, or like women aren't weaker than men, then it's like, well, we're kind of capitulating to an extent that those qualities are important. That women are equal to men because they're just as capable, rather than saying, like, okay, well, why is them being different? Like, obviously the women are not stupider than men, whatever. But if they're physically, like, not able to do all the same things or something, you know, like, why would that difference not just be like a normal part of society, and like not something that we should be basing prejudice off of? And you could just say, like, oh, esoterically, they just hate women and they'll come up with a bunch of post hoc justifications. But I do think that the belief is rooted in something about inferiority, and that ability is one of the primary axis upon which people feel superior to other people, right? It's why we end up in this situation where people, like, think they're better than other people because they have a skilled trade, or like people think they're better than other people because they're white, is because they think that they're more capable. Hmm. Yes, I agree, Eric. It is alarming because the left often as well fails to take a lot of the disability issues seriously. It is one of the major oversights of the broader leftist movement that we're being made fun of, and told that we're just a CIA op, or that we are attention seeking, or that we're mentally ill because we acknowledge that you should fucking wear a mask everywhere you go. Like, that's not negotiable. You're not arguing with me when you argue against wearing a mask. You're arguing with a disease that wants to kill you, like a virus that wants to explode all of your cells in pursuit of replicating itself. Like, that's like, you're not arguing with me. I'm sorry, you're arguing with reality. Yeah, I do think there's also this idea that disabled people are well taken care of, and then, like, you get all these special things and you get to just sit home and relax all day, when it's like, actually, I would fucking love nothing more than to be able to get out of bed today, but I'm trapped here. And, like, I had to struggle, even though I feel like I can't get out of bed, I still have to make 18 calls today to get fucking disability benefits, you know? Like, Droning Goddess, welcome to the website, says, I'm more enlightened, so I only discriminate against people based on aura color. Solid. Kitty asserts that it started about 17 years ago with a marked rise in racism toward Latin Americans, especially ones who do not speak English. And I mean, there was also, like, 9/11 and the hostility against Muslims and everything. Can't pretend like that's not part of it. Can't deny it, can't pretend. Yeah, that's a great point. Viren points out, was that Viren? No. No. That was Lemony Limelight. Okay. As Lemony points out, the 504 sit-ins are not taught about. And, like, I actually forgot what this was, and I had to Google it really quick. In 1977, a group of people with disabilities staged a sit-in protest in San Francisco. Like, people would, like, crawl out of their wheelchairs onto the steps of the state capitol and things like this. Like, there is an entire movement around disability access. And the thing, too, is that anyone can become disabled. Catch COVID enough times, babe, I promise you, you'll be having trouble walking up and down them stairs. Like, anybody can get in a car accident. If you live long enough, you will become disabled. Like, that's what being old is. It's you not being physically able to do things anymore, or losing your hearing, or going blind, or whatever. Like, it is just age-induced disability. It will happen someday. And you will become one of the most easily discarded and disregarded groups in the world. By the way, the 504, yeah, was the longest sit-in protest in U.S. history. Anyway, I know that this channel is really more about, like, trans issues, but, like, I am desperate to get people to think about these things more because, again, all the reasons I already stated, like, ableism underlies all forms of prejudice, in my opinion. But, like, I am disabled, you know? I have a physical disability that impacts my ability to function literally every day. There is not a single day of my life right now that I am not dealing with my symptoms. I am trying to get to a place where I can wrangle them enough that I can then exercise, and then, like, maybe even get to a point where I'm, like, mostly functioning like a normal person, but, like, I can't do things. And it's so limiting. And, like, we talk about the abortion issue because, first of all, people who can get pregnant represent 50% of the population, and therefore that impacts a huge number of people. But also it affects me personally. I talk about things that affect me personally. If you're here to listen to me talk about trans issues, then please listen to me when I talk about other things. Like, I need people to care about me in my totality and not just the things that are commodified. Like my transness has been commodified. Anyway, we still got lots to talk about today. We're going to do a quick couple of honorable mentions because we had a lot of news this week and I knew that I was going to end up running out of time. So I want to do just a couple of very short things. In a Walmart, a cis woman who works there was fired after a customer accused her of being trans in the bathroom. We talked about 2 weeks ago the case of a employee calling the cops on a woman using the bathroom, accusing her of being trans. And now we have the kind of opposite of like an employee accusing a customer accusing an employee of being trans. Cisgender women are going to be harmed more than anyone else. This woman is just a woman who happens to be 6 feet tall. She just is a tall woman. She's actually, she's 6'4". And then she was fired. So that's the situation. The pretense for her being fired was that she didn't tell her superior that the incident happened. She did tell her supervisor, but because she didn't personally inform a manager who was in a salaried position, they terminated her. So I don't even know what to do with that, which is why it's an honorable mention. The next honorable mention for today is that Elon Musk said that he was going to break the law in Wisconsin. Well, he didn't know the law. He said that he was going to pay $1 million to 2 random voters who turned out for something that he wanted them to vote on. I think it had something to do with the Supreme Court election. Yeah, Supreme Court election in the state of Wisconsin. That is called, I don't know that it's called bribery, but it's functionally bribery, and it is illegal. It's election interference. And the Attorney General of the state of Wisconsin, who is a Democrat, I guess, asked the appeals court to say, hey, tell him he can't do that. The Wisconsin appeals court denied the state Democratic attorney's request to stop billionaire Elon Musk from handing over these checks to 2 voters at a rally. The denial Saturday by the Wisconsin Court of Appeals is the latest twist in Musk's deep involvement in the race, which has set a record for spending in a judicial election and has become a litmus test for the opening months of Donald Trump's presidency. Why is he not being arrested is a question that I have and that I will leave open. Let's do a brief intermission, shall we? So during intermission, I just want to do my little plugs. Please check out my Patreon and the website where you can directly donate one-time donations. And I just had a birthday, so if you want to check out my wish list, please check that out. I appreciate support because this is my job to do psychic damage to myself and help inform you about what's most important in the news right now. Excuse me. Now we have the part of the show where we talk about positive things. Now is the part of the show where we try to make sure we mix in a little bit of good news. The good news that I want to start with right now is that a new poll has shown that there is massive opposition to this U.S. government censorship of trans people. The poll also shows heavy support for trans youth, opposition to the military ban, and opposition to the prosecution of teachers who affirm their trans students. The new poll is from Data for Progress, and it reveals broad public rejection of the Trump admin's quiet campaign to erase LGBTQ plus health information from federal websites. 52% of respondents oppose the removal of information on LGBTQ plus health disparities and non-discrimination protections, and only 26% explicitly support the removal of those things. These numbers reflect overwhelming resistance to the administration's censorship effort, which has already seen reversals in court. Respondents opposed removing mentions of trans people from the Stonewall National Monument website by a 23-point margin. They also opposed altering LGBTQ plus down to just LGB in government materials by a 22-point separation. And here's some of the data if you want to see, like, this is the report being given by the Data for Progress organization showing that people are strongly opposing. Obviously, there are some people who just respond, I don't know how I feel about that. But, like, between, like, somewhat oppose and strongly oppose, it seems like in many cases, at least around half of the people responding are like, I think you should stop trying to fuck over trans people. Stuff about the websites is not the only executive action being met with broad public disapproval. The Trump admin's push to ban trans healthcare is also deeply unpopular. When asked which statement they agreed with more, a clear majority, 55%, said that families and physicians should be the ones making decisions about transgender youth medical care, not the government, while only 33% supported government bans on gender-related care for trans youth. Among respondents who personally know a trans person, support for gender-affirming care jumped to 65%, with only 30% favoring government intervention. I still think that this is an alarmingly high number, but at least we can say that, like, a majority leans toward not being horrible people. Perhaps surprisingly, even trans sports participation rules found support in the latest poll. A plurality of 45% of respondents said that they believe local school districts and sports associations, not the federal government, should determine fair participation rules, with 43% answering the opposite, which may reflect growing unease with the sweeping nature of recent federal bans. The poll also found overwhelming opposition to Trump's executive order targeting teachers who support trans youth. 61% of respondents opposed that policy, while just 27% supported it. And of course, opposition to the trans military ban, only 21% of those polled supported the trans military ban. So that's a little bit of good news. A little bit of positivity in the world. Good stuff, right? Now, I only have one story left. This one's a positive one. And then after that, we're going to talk about what we can do this week. What can we do about all this stuff? We have a call to action segment at the end every time. So if you're feeling hopeless and bogged down, we'll get there, okay? Don't forget. There's a new Democrat in town. We have talked a couple times now recently about being very frustrated with the direction that the Democratic Party is trending and how they seem to be pulling away from trans support in a time when, like, that is a capitulation they're trying to make, which only provides an inch from which they will take a mile, of course. So now we've got some young blood entering the ring. Her name is Kat Abugazela, and she has kicked off her campaign with, this is just a WordPress document, but I was like, oh, it's discussing a speech that she did. She kicked off her primary campaign at Evanston's Five and Dime with over 100 supporters and soon-to-be volunteers. During the speech, she announced to the room that her 5-day-old campaign had amassed just over $300,000 just with grassroots donors, with an average of about $38 per donation. And in addition to several dozen boxes of period hygiene products asked by the campaign in lieu of a monetary entrance fee for the Period Collective nonprofit. So Kat is quite different. She posted a little video. Let me actually pull up the video.
Donald Trump.
Okay, hold up. Let's do this. Let me make sure the audio is good. Give me a second here to fix it.
Trump and Elon Musk are dismantling our country piece
Okay, cool. We'll start from the beginning. Wait.
by piece. And so many Democrats.
Okay, now it needs to come back down. Sorry. I'm just trying to figure out the exact level it needs to be. Okay, this should be good. Let's try this.
Donald Trump and Elon Musk are dismantling our country piece by piece. And so many Democrats seem content to just sit back and let them. So I say it's time to drop the excuses and grow a fucking spine. I'm Kat Abou-Ghazaleh, and I'm running for Congress in Illinois' 9th District. Unfortunately, this party has become one where you have to look to the exceptions for real leadership, as the majority work from an outdated playbook. We need a makeover, which means we need a vision that's bigger than what we've been told is possible. There is absolutely no reason you shouldn't be able to afford housing, groceries, and healthcare with some money left over. Families should have free childcare. Social Security should be expanded. And
I haven't seen a fucking Democrat say in forever that families should have free childcare. Jeez, cheese and crackers, you know? Like, she's not even like a radical Democrat, and I'm still like, God, a breath of fresh air. Oh, she's got a keffiyeh in the background. I just noticed that. Oh, that's cute. That's a cute little gesture.
Our inalienable rights shouldn't be dependent on who's in power.
True.
That means standing up to authoritarians, not shrinking away when the fight gets tough. And while current Democratic leadership might be fine cowering to Trump, I'm not. I've spent my entire career reporting on the far right and being attacked by them as a result.
Which, by the way, she has been published in several major newspapers, basically, and the coverage of this has repeatedly referred to her as a TikTok star, which is just a way of undermining her like seriousness. She is a published like journalist. It's just interesting.
In fact, just a few months ago, Elon Musk's lawyers deposed me here in Chicago to ask about my mean tweets. Look, I thought comedy was legal again. This is all to say, I'm not scared of standing up to these people. I know how they think, and I know how to beat them. But my campaign itself is going to be different too, because I don't want to wait a year to help people. We're focused on meeting constituent needs with one simple rule. What if we didn't suck? My campaign and I would rather spend our money on book drives and clothing exchanges and public events than fancy fundraisers for rich donors. I also want my campaign to be as transparent as possible. That's why I'll be posting regular videos about the costs and steps of running for office.
I feel like, I don't know if she means for it to be, but that's going to basically be like a how-to blueprint for people to follow. If she's going to be posting, oh my God, that was an unfortunate pause. I'm going to get off of that. Sorry. I'm so sorry. That was on me. That was my bad. I'm sorry. I totally forgot what I was about to say. I don't know what I was about to say. Hold on. What did she just say? Oh yeah, she's going to be publishing videos about the costs and steps of running for office. Hopefully that will provide like a blueprint for a lot of other young people, because I do think that more young people should be getting involved. Even if you feel like you can't win, like try to run, like try. Okay, let's continue.
We all deserve better. We deserve human rights and financial freedom and a party that stands up to authoritarians. We deserve to thrive, not just survive.
Right.
And I plan to fight for those ideals both on the campaign trail and in Congress. If you want to know more about me and what I believe, you can go to catforillinois.com. I do need to mention that campaigns cost money and ask you to contribute what you can. But I promise your donation will not be wasted on old, ineffective tactics. No spammy guilt trip texts, no focus groups to test my views, and no grifty consultants who care more about their paycheck than actually winning. It's time to challenge the status quo, and if our leaders won't do it, we will. I'm Kat Abou-Ghazaleh, and I'm running for Congress because it's time for Democrats to do more.
True. Okay, so, and then if you go looking at her Blue Sky, because that is kind of where she's posting the most, as far as I can tell. Oh, convenient. She's right there. So I also want to call attention to like, so yeah, as that article was saying, over 130 people attended the first campaign event, and like a lot of the time at these events, they'll say like it's if you want to come into the event, it's a small monetary donation. You have to give like at least $5 or something. So instead of asking for donations, they just asked for period products, and they got a whole shit ton of them, and so they're donating these to people in need in the community. So she said in that video like, "Oh, I want to not only I don't want to just wait to help people until I'm in office." She's also like wants to help people in the more immediate term. So on the calendar for her campaign is clothing exchanges, banned book drives, lake beach cleanups, and that's just the start. So that honestly, I think that this is amazing, because what better way to get people to vote for you than to like actually show that you're going to invest in your community? And she got $300,000 in donations already. I think this shows like a passion and a desperation for people who will just talk sense, and who want to get shit done, and who actually want to help people, who actually perceive their job as a leader in this country as being like, we actually have to like help people and govern in a way that creates positive outcomes for folks. But yeah, put your progress where your mouth is. True. And I guess she's a content creator in general. I hadn't heard about her before this, but she's got a couple of video essays and videos with Mother Jones. She did a live stream with Wisecrack. I'm just reading chat. I'm reading what chat is saying here. Yeah, banned book drives. Right. Like, imagine actually feeling inspired by somebody. Like, and she's like a shit poster too. She's done the mean tweets at Elon thing. She went on a podcast recently, and the podcast's Discord community was having a discussion about like which Pokemon are the most smashable, like smash or pass kind of thing. And so that got out as like, now she's associated with a podcast that talks about how fuckable Pokemon are. And then she did a cosplay of sexy Charizard when she was in college. So she has pictures of her in a like, I don't actually know if it's a very sexy Charizard. In my opinion, it's just like her in a Charizard onesie, but it is like, it just is cute. Like, she's a real human person who's like young. And she also said like, she's running actually against, she is running to replace a Democrat. There's an older Democrat in her district who she is running basically to replace her. And I can't find the tweet right this moment, but she said like, I respect her very much. And yeah. Okay, here. She said, hold on, let me see if I can actually find this in the article. Okay, so Kat is up against this woman called Jan Schakowsky of the 9th District in Illinois. She will be 82 years old upon taking the oath of office if she wins. So event goers have expressed concern for her age and long career. One woman at the event said, I like Jan and I like the work she's done, particularly the work of her staff, but I would also like her to be able to retire and have younger, more representative voices. I have such high hopes for her. Like, this feels kind of to me like the sort of air in our sails that we got when AOC ran. You know, like, remember how energizing that was to have like a young woman with a history as like a laborer, a bartender who was like, I just gotta do something. And I think AOC also primaried against a Democrat and took his place. So yeah, we see that this can happen. We see that this is possible. And so many people are like, I've never donated to a political campaign, but I donated to Kat Abugazala's. Like, yeah, we need to see more of this. So with that, hopefully somewhat electrifying energy, I bring to you the call to action for this week. I'm trying to do like a different thing each week. And this week, I guess I'm giving you a palette of options. I want you to look into volunteering for a local candidate. If you are in Illinois, then great. You can volunteer for Kat's campaign. Volunteering includes a lot of different things. It can include text banking, where you just text people. It can include phone banking, where you call people and try to get them to have a conversation with you. Yes, you'll get hung up on a lot, probably, but they give you a script and they give you a little bit of training to prepare you. And this is something that is very useful. It genuinely does make a difference. And then there's the kind of go knocking on people's doors, which you can do. And like campaigns need all kinds of work. Campaigns need ads. If you have graphic design skills, you could volunteer those skills, you know? Just anything you can do. Call and ask. Get in contact, like get informed. What are some elections coming up in your area? Is there a candidate that you could support? Even if you feel like maybe they won't win, there are more and more and more left-wing people who feel that they are not being represented who are going out. There are more and more and more trans people running for local office. You can support trans politicians in your community, in your state, by volunteering. You can also pitch in $5. I personally think that there's a higher value in donating a couple hours of your time than there is to pitching in $5, but everything, if you can afford the $5, sure. Hopefully that doesn't make you feel like that's the last thing you need to do. There's another step beyond that. We have also talked about looking into running for office, which I do still think is a great call to action. You might not feel like you're able to, but there were links in the video last time. Let me pull one up for you now. There's a website called runforsomething.net, and this is specifically meant to help people under the age of 40 run for public office. So not only could you look into volunteering for a campaign in your community, you could look into running. And I'm not saying that like between now and next week, like you have to have volunteered somewhere. I'm saying like look into it and be serious about looking into it. Whether it's running yourself, whether it is supporting someone else running, get involved. Get involved. And I'm going to limit my call to action to just those things for this week. But every week, I'm going to give you something else. You'll find eventually where it is that you can apply yourself. And we will get through this. So with all that said, good news, bad news, whether here or there, I'm glad that we're in this together. That makes it feel a little bit better. Just a little bit. So for the YouTube video now, I'm going to say goodbye. Please, again, like, comment, share, subscribe, check your notification settings, all those things. Please consider supporting the show because this is my job. If you felt anything, if you felt inspired, interact and contribute in whatever way you feel appropriate. And get out there and do something, because I promise you can. I promise you can accomplish more than you think you can. You can influence so many more people than you think. Your message will spread so much further than you think. You just have to stand there and like speak your mind. So thank you, everybody. That's it for the YouTube video for today, and I will see you next week. Okay, now we're done. We're done with stream segment. I don't have much longer in my schedule for today. I do want to get off a little bit before 3 o'clock. Dude, today is one of those streams where like I almost cried a couple times. I did not really intend to get that emotional, but yeah. AOC didn't just beat any Democrat, she beat Joe Crowley. He was the number 4 Democrat in the House, and Pelosi wanted him to be the next speaker. That was a huge win against corporate Democrats. Fucking high five AOC, and she's still in there too. Yeah, Tara says, I'm volunteering for the local Pride Center again tomorrow. It's a bi-weekly thing for me, but I just want to say getting involved volunteering for local community is fantastic. Please get involved. Yes. I'm like rotating things out, especially because it's been the case a couple times recently that I've done 2 calls to action instead of just 1 because I want to present people with an option. Um, but yes, I have said repeatedly, like getting involved, volunteering for the homeless shelter, or like getting into a community garden or something, like giving your time to a community thing is good. Yeah, a food bank, local soup kitchen. Yeah, I just wanted to focus on like those couple of things of like volunteer for a campaign specifically, because of the kind of momentum off of Kat Abugazala. Abugazala. Yeah, don't leave yet. Yeah, no wonder Pelosi hates her. Jeez. I wish I knew if I was doing Takis this week. I do not know if I'm doing Takis this week. What's up, Mira? Okay, what can we talk about for this last little bit? Do we have something? I'm getting rid of some of my tabs that I don't need up anymore. Suggestion for seed heat pad. Go to Goodwill, buy a decent quality used heated blanket with a thermometer, not just a high or low setting. They work great and you can use a whole tabletop. Oh, kitty. Yeah, I started to weed my garden and I didn't stay there for very long because I have a huge garden plot. Which is, yeah, it's just a lot. Mira, I think that it would block your link in the comments. Or sorry, I think it would block your link on the live chat for some reason, even though I took that setting off. They still don't let people post links in the live chat. But if you put it in, if you want to put it in the comments or if you want to put it in the Discord server, that would be fine. I will, I'll put that on the list for next week. I am in trouble. I have so much to do still. Yeah. Yes, Junebug. Absolutely do it. It usually is like less than $50 to rent a plot for the entire season. Honestly, I really wish that I had some cardboard. I might need to like get some of my most fucked up cardboard boxes that I probably won't use again and like take them to my garden and try to use them to kill all the weeds. Because at this point, pulling out all the weeds would be very, very difficult. I might actually do that. I might actually try to do that today even. But yes, getting your hands in the ground feels really good. It's good stuff. Is there any chance we will get the donations up so that I can show you my cat? He's snoring again. He basically hasn't really left this area for the last couple hours, which I think means that I need to bother him. I'm just going to go ahead and bother him and show him to you anyway. We are seriously talking about getting a kitten because we think this big boy needs someone to hang out with, and we think that he needs someone with some playful energy to get him more active. Oh my god, your butthole. Sorry. Yeah, $40 for a community garden. Yeah, that's a great deal. Hi, pretty baby. Yeah. So sometimes if he's been laying in one spot for too long, I'll pick him up and bother him or smack him around a little bit, trying to get him to just like wake up. And then usually if he gets a little overstimulated, he wants to go drink water. So I'm just like, okay, let me get you to go drink some water, and then at least you're up and walking around. Hey, pretty baby. Yeah, you a good boy. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. He's like, I'm so tired. Why are you doing this to me? Please stop. Look at him. He's fully tucked in. Oh. What a baby. I feel bad for bothering him, but not that much. Oh, you're so good. Aren't you? Look at your cute little face. Oh no. How much does he weigh? About 20 pounds. Yeah, he's pretty heavy. Are you good? Are you just gonna stay there until I put you down? He's so tired. Oh, poor baby. You know what I love about black cats? I don't know. What do you love about black cats, Gayfish? Are you okay? Yeah, their whiskers and claws just stick out. He's good. I don't know what it is about black cats, but in my experience, black cats have very long claws, like much longer than usual. And their quick comes down almost all the way to the tip, so it's basically impossible to clip their nails without hurting them. And then he actually used to have all black whiskers, but his whiskers are turning white because he's old. Are you old boy? You old man? He's so good. I have 2 black cats, one being a kitten and Yeah, no, we're very like, okay, we might have to start visiting the Humane Society because we would really like him to have a friend, and we also really don't want to not have a cat. So if he passes, then I think that it would be easier for us if we still had a cat around. Yes, we have Plural Kit in the Discord server. Yep. Makes communication easier for you guys. Kitty says, I'm doing everything in towers of buckets this year. 3 5-gallon buckets stacked in grid shapes with lattices across the tops for my melons and squashes. You'll have to take some pictures and show me how that's working, Kitty. Yes, good night, Mosh. I know it's late for you guys. Good night. Thank you for hanging out. Just so you know, Mosh, you people are the reason why I stream so early in the day. I stream at 11 a.m. my time, and it's because I have got so many wonderful community members from across the pond. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it very much. Oh, damn. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Droning Goddess, you got your cats through the lottery, the cat distribution system. Rescued my last 2 cats because someone tossed a box of kittens out of their speeding vehicle. Ugh. We do like the idea of the cat distribution system, but the thing about that is that it's much more expensive if you get a cat through the distribution system, and you have to be worried about like disease, and like if you adopt a cat and like support your local humane societies. Oh my God. Like if you're going to donate your time to the community, donate to the Humane Society, like volunteer if you can. Cause they do so much good work. So if it's like $100 to adopt a cat, well, guess what? That cat has already been fixed. That cat has already been vaccinated. That cat has been tested for diabetes and FIV and all this stuff. So like, you know what you're getting when you get a cat from the Humane Society. You know that that cat has been treated if it had worms. You know that it doesn't have fleas. But if you get a cat just outside, okay, then you have to worry about like, does it have worms? Does it have fleas? Has it been fixed? Is it pregnant currently? Like, it's expensive to get all those procedures done. So like, you guys, if you ever think like, wow, why would I pay? Actually, I think at the Portland Humane Society, it's like $200 to get a cat that's below the age of 6 months. Like they charge more for kittens because they're more desirable. They charge less for the older animals to help move them out. But yeah, like, okay, if you're like, oh, $200 is so expensive for a cat. Well, like, okay, but how much would it have cost if you had paid for that cat to get spayed or neutered? That on its own probably more than covers it. It is a surgery, you know? Yeah, also had to nurse them back to health from the road rash. Yeah, not good. That's how our son appeared. His mom broke 2 window screens to get outside and get laid, and then had 8 babies. It was her first so she hadn't been spayed yet. I don't think the current recommendations are that you actually have to wait until their first heat to get them spayed. I think it's an age thing. You can get them fixed before they ever, like our boy cats that we are like bonded pair boy cats that we had, they were fixed before they got to a place where they were like doing puberty. Or like at least like before they became sexually active. Yeah, the first round of vaccines and getting fixed can be super expensive. Yeah, so just go to the fucking Humane Society is what I'm trying to say. Support the Humane Society. Yeah, you can get your cats spayed before they have their first heat. I know some people say like it reduces their cancer risk or something if you let them have one heat first. I think actually the risk of cancer increases the more times they go in heat, or maybe it's like their risk of cancer increases the more times that they get pregnant or something. So it's actually way better for their long-term health if you if you do get them fixed before they ever go in heat. Okay, yeah, it was a long time ago, so the process was different, probably, totally, yeah. All right, well, thank you everybody so much for hanging out. I think that I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here for today. I have some stuff that I need to accomplish this evening, but I appreciate y'all hanging out. I look forward to seeing you on Wednesday, where we can chill and talk about weird stuff. Help me know what you want to see on chill nights too. If you want to be like, hey, I want to get your opinion on this stupid fucking thing, like, I don't know, feel free. Or if you're like, there's a game I want to see you play or whatever, blah blah blah, let me know how you want to do the chill nights, because I struggle more with those by far than trying to figure out what I'm going to cover on the serious show. So thanks everybody, be good. I'll see you Wednesday, probably. Bye.